Like, are there postmodern MMOs?
Well,
Are there pre-modern MMOs?
technically, postmodern MMOs would be things like Destiny.
They did actually announce that. That's one of the things
So-
I was kind of wondering. Is like I've never called it modern MMOs because I'm like,
The modern
Well, it kinda
MMO
goes-
is considered the classic MMO.
Yeah, everything after MUDs, basically.
Yeah. So it's a technicality on verbiage, but yes.
yeah, it was more like I didn't understand.
The
like,
modern
name scheme
MMO
for
is
that.
considered, WoW and EverQuest and all that stuff. So,
Okay.
yep.
Yeah, cool. That was literally it. Whenever I just didn't understand the modern part because
Yep.
in my research of it, everybody just says MMO.
It's true, but yeah, I was just kind of throwing that on there because calling it like the classic MMO already kind of denotes that it's dead.
Yeah.
So it is, and that's
I mean-
that's part of the discussion to be had for it. But
It was literally, "Are you WoW? No, cool. You had a life. It's gone now.
there are
You're
two
dead."
Yeah, I was
MMOs
gonna
that are
say-
still successful.
Final
And
Fantasy
Final
still
Fantasy
has-
is the only other one.
A lot, yeah, that's pretty much it.
I mean, I know people that still play EverQuest.
Well, it's also
I know
it's also
people that still
key to
play fucking.
think about things like the failed Kickstarter MMOs and all those things that have really been going on. I mean, when we talk about something, even though it's not released yet, like a Star Citizen, that's not a modern MMO, or it's not. It's not a modern MMO.
Right.
That's everything that's going to be coming after that.
Right. It becomes it's a multiplayer experience, but it's not what we would think of when we think about MMOs. Is that's
Right.
what sets things like Destiny and Anthem apart.
Right.
It's like,
Even
well,
to a
here's
cer-
the city. Oh, the city where everyone
Weirdly-
goes. Actually, it's like 14 people in there.
Like even to a certain extent, when you think about, and I know that it's a weird topic to bring up, but EVE Online, like EVE Online is a completely different beast than a classic MMO.
oh yeah.
I mean,
But it's totally one.
yeah.
And it's classic in the way that it gave zero fucks about teaching you anything about the game. It's
Yeah.
just like, here,
Yeah.
game.
Go, absolutely.
Why are you not working? Just unified chat.
I guess.
Okay, now you're deciding to work when I
Yeah.
move you onto the other fucking screen.
Yeah, it wasn't at its home. It wasn't at its home. It wanted to go home first.
All right, everybody ready?
Ready.
Okay.
Seems like everything's working.
Nothing looks like it's exploding
I
right
can hear us.
Yeah.
We sound fine.
All right.
It looked fine. That seems to be streaming. I just, for some reason, feel like everything's going to break in like 5 seconds.
That's possible.
But all right.
Right.
Ready?
Yep.
Ready.
Is the MMO genre finally dead? Adventurers gear up for an all-new episode.
It's good. Quick and easy.
Greetings, adventurers, and welcome to the show. We are the Surly Nerd, your one-stop shop for geek news that might have flown under your radar over the last week. I'm your host, James, and sitting across from me is the producer of this fine show, Tony.
Hey.
And with us, as always, is our third chair host, Hector.
Howdy.
And if you're new to our show, hey, welcome. This week we will be discussing the possible death of the MMO genre, but before that, we have all the news that's fit to rant about for your ears. Don't forget that you can keep connected with us at thesurlynerd.com. You can follow us on all social media platforms and even donate to the show. Every penny donated goes right back into the show that we make for you every week. With all that out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, adventurers of all ages, it's time for The Prelude.
It's really hard to test out, like, much louder I need to turn you up as you are also increasing in volume. It's like, okay, I need a little bit more. Okay, now he's louder. I need God damn it. Because you always get louder at the very end, right before,
Yeah.
and we're going to the next part. And it's like, but I need to test the audio.
All right.
Yeah, it was a little bit quiet, but it's not going to be a big,
I was
big
gonna say
deal.
we can probably still hear it.
Yeah, you can. That's definitely a good track. It's
Yeah.
just a little bit quieter than what I normally have it at.
Gotcha.
Prelude.
All right, this is The Prelude. This is what we've been doing with ourselves this week, what we've been playing, what we've been watching, and what's been occupying our free time. Tony, what have you been doing this week?
I have been doing a lot of things. We talked about this like last night. Learning a shitload of video editing and animation software.
Oh, fun.
And doing animation stuff and character design shit. It's been very complicated.
Yeah, it sounds very complicated, very tedious at times.
Educational.
It is very educational. It's just exhausting because whenever you're doing like something like doing job searching just because, and then also learning something at the same time, and then like watching YouTube about the thing that you're learning, it's my days have felt very exhausting recently. So I never stop. I've turned all the hobby things, the things I used to enjoy, into learning activities, and now it's like, fuck me.
Hector, what have you been doing this week?
Let's see. What have I been doing? I've got, let's see. I got back into Overwatch, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah?
Started playing Overwatch again after they launched, right before they launched Sigma. Just to get back in and, see what my chops are like. And it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
The game's...
Roll Q is live now.
Roll Q is wonderful. It's like the greatest thing ever. I had this moment where, just right after Roll Q started, where somebody queued up as a tank, didn't know how to play, and was like doing it badly. And when he got critiqued, I was a healer, which is what I always am. And he's like, fine, you play Ryan, I'll play a healer. I'm like, no. And he's like, but I'm a great healer. I'm like, no, you're not. You can't. He's like, yes, I can. I'm like, but you can't, though. you can't. we did this thing.
You literally can't switch.
You cannot switch with me.
Yeah.
You should have queued for something you're good at. This is comp.
Right, exactly.
Let's see. That is a negative experience. One of the few. I found the game less toxic. Even in quick play, I find it more accessible in general, and I'm having a lot of fun with the newer characters.
Very nice.
So
there's someone else here that has mentioned that Roll Q kind of screwed over their comps.
No,
and it wasn't me. So this is.
I ended up. I did my placement matches, and I ended up in gold. And I mean, I've always been a low diamond, high platinum player.
Right.
So it was pretty jarring to me. But I mean, I don't feel like I'm playing with people vastly less skilled than I am. So whatever adjustments they did them, and it seems like it all kind of worked out.
I'm going to be the one that's angry here because I took a pretty high SR cut out of mine, and I was like, "Wow, thanks, assholes."
Yeah,
So-
that's fair, and that's also the nature of placement games. If you just end up with bad groups, you got to climb all on your own.
Yep.
Let's see. I got into. I finished Happy season 2. That was amazing. Definitely watch the show Happy. The first season's on Netflix for sure, and the second season should be soon.
Did you get to check out Mindhunter?
I am 5 episodes into the second season of Mindhunter, and it is phenomenal.
It really is. I'm nearly done. I think I have 2 episodes
Think
left.
about checking that show out over the next week.
It
It's fucking
deserves.
amazing.
It's 100% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes,
Yeah.
which is not a thing many shows get.
Right.
And yeah, it is 100%. Like, yep, that's the rating this show deserves.
Yeah, no, the acting, the storytelling, the direction, the world, everything about that show is fucking perfect.
I could go on for an hour just about the way David Fincher shoots things, but he has a way of making you feel like you're standing next to people when they're talking, and it's really incredible. Let's see, 1 or 2 more things. I'm really sad right now that I'm missing TI. The International is going on right now, and I talk about it every year. And this year, it's taking place in Shanghai.
And what is TI for our audience?
The International is the biggest annual Dota tournament there is. Dota is Defense of the Ancients. It's actually Dota 2, but
I actually did not know what the name of it was. I just knew it was called Dota, and it was a game that I did not want to play.
So it's a MOBA, and it's by far the most popular one, even in the world of League of Legends, and millions of players around the world, and it has the highest prize pool of any esport on Earth by far.
Yeah.
The prize pool this year was over 30 million.
Jesus.
Yeah, and that's just like the top 5 teams like are getting on that money.
Right.
So I mean, holy shit. But the thing that the reason I'm missing it this year is because it's in Shanghai. Meaning that the matches all take place when I'm asleep.
Oh.
Yeah.
So when when I get to work, there's usually like 1 or 2 matches left in the day, and and I get to work at sharp 7 a.m. So I can maybe watch for an hour before it's just over. And I certainly didn't watch all night, and I can go back and watch the matches. But there's something about watching it live that's a little bit more exciting.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's that way for sports in general, right? I mean, you hear people that like love football, and they're like, I don't get to watch the game today because I have to go do a thing, and somebody will say like, well, you could just like record it, and they'll be like, it's not the same thing.
It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Let's see. Last couple things real quick. I watched Godzilla King of the Monsters. Was very surprised because it is not an American Godzilla movie. It feels exactly like a Toho Godzilla movie
Very nice.
in that it is often cheesy and focuses very hard on the monsters and their relationships and not all the people running around on the ground.
Yeah.
They are.
And that was the problem with the last Godzilla movie,
Yeah,
which
that it was-
this is the sequel to.
Yes, there was very little Godzilla in the last Godzilla movie, and
There's a lot of Bryan Cranston.
yeah, and in this movie, I feel like the audience in the theater would have been bewildered and said, "Why are we focusing on the fact that Godzilla's sad right now?
Right.
Like, what is happening with this monster movie? But I loved it. It was like even just the final shot, which I'm not going to tell you about, but even just the final shot is so Toho. Like this shot credits. I was like, holy fuck. I can't believe they did this.
Very
I
nice.
can see why American audiences might not have liked it, but I loved it.
Very nice. One thing that we all did this week is we decided to have a
Yes.
big nerd night on Friday, and we sat down and decided to bring it back to childhood. And we watched the new Invader Zim and the new Rocco's Modern Life special that's on Netflix.
Oh, fuck, and they were both so good.
Yeah.
For
I
completely
enjoyed the
different
hell out of both of
reasons.
them.
Yeah.
Invader Zim was a really like true to form. This felt like Yonan being able to do everything that he's ever wanted to do, but never had the budget to.
Right, yeah, it felt like Invader Zim Unchained. Like,
Yeah.
I have all the budget I need now, and I'm going to use it, and he did. God, the animation was gorgeous.
Yep. The only other thing that I did this week is I went ahead and spent a good majority of my week playing through Wolfenstein. I'm pretty sure I'm pretty well at the end, while simultaneously watching all of The Handmaid's Tale newest season, which, by the way,
I have not finished
while done simultaneously, is possibly the most oppressive thing you can do to yourself
Yeah,
emotionally.
let's
Yeah,
see.
I
The
can't-
Handmaid's Tale plus killing Nazis.
Yeah, it's bad. Like, you know, like on one hand, like you have like the like women being oppressed, and on like my other screen, I've got like myself being put into a furnace, and I'm like, wow, this is like, is there a game out there where I can just pet a dog for a while? Because I
Yeah.
feel like I'm going to need that after this.
Someone load up
Slime
Slime
Rancher.
Rancher. Yeah,
Right.
I need to pet something with the smiley face for a body.
Please. But yeah, I mean, I'm not upset that I did it, but
Yeah.
it was upsetting in the moment because it was really at a part in the show where it was even more oppressive than normal. And on top of that, I'm going through this scene kind of in this crematorium, and they're describing what's going on. I'm like, I am having problems processing a lot of this right now. Like, this is a rough ride.
Yeah. I need to go ahead and binge Handmaid's Tale season 3.
Yeah.
But I need to get in the right headspace to do it.
Absolutely. All right, that's everything that we've done with ourselves this week. We're going to take a small break. When we come back, we'll be going into our new segment, which is the weekly raid.
Crosscode. I'll talk about.
I mean,
it
I was
next
going to talk about Aquaman, but we didn't get there.
week. Like the movie.
Yeah, I finally watched it last night.
Yeah, congrats.
It was good.
It was
There's a lot
fine.
of, There was a lot of stuff we left out of that segment.
Yeah.
Like Hector was actually going to like argue with us about what we talked about last week.
Yeah,
Oh,
it wasn't
yeah.
an argue. I have one point, and I don't
We
really
just
need to
literally
make
start
it.
that start the next section with that. Like Hector, like
We
cuts,
could.
like have Hector cut him off.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, so we
Yeah.
got to talk about this, and then so then just fucking do it there.
Sure.
Yeah,
Fun.
I can. I feel like I'll be bitching a little bit, and I don't know. Like I
You
have.
want me to go? Come on down to Hector's bitching corner.
Yes.
He's gonna
Okay,
bitch.
let's do that. I'm gonna bitch a little bit now. Yeah. Okay, I like it.
You can start with that, or you mean just like
Just throw it in there. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I need to click. Right. There we go. Weekly raid. But first, come on down to Hector's bitching corner, where Hector's gonna bitch about something.
All right, guys, I got to bitch about something real quick. Hang on. So, last week, in my absence, you guys had the State of the Union episode, which we do about once a year, about how consoles are doing at the moment. And you guys pretty much did a great job of laying out how each console is doing presently. But then we came to the end where we got to like our final thoughts on the current state of the union. And I couldn't have disagreed more, because instead of talking about the current state of consoles, you kind of talked about the future of consoles, in which you said, well, Sony needs to shape up and Xbox is looking great. I need to say that that is not the current state of consoles
Sure.
at all.
Right.
Sony, first of all, is fucking killing it and will continue to kill it up until the launch of their next console, whatever form that may take. Right now, until December of next year, it sucks to own an Xbox. It just does. As far as feeling like a well-catered to gamer goes. So when it comes to exclusives, when it comes to big exciting things you can't see anywhere else, you're still going to feel neglected for another year and a half minimum. While Sony has at least two AAA games coming out between now and then.
I mean, I do agree with you on that, but with one exception on the Xbox side. With the creation of Games Pass, the next year and a half will go by me playing a shitload of games because I can for $1.
No, you're not wrong. Games Pass is great, and I actually specifically wrote that down to say, Xbox is not doing everything wrong and shitting on their gamers. That's not what I mean to imply. All I'm saying is that as a console generation, we have pretty much failed on the Microsoft side, aside from Games Pass. And that is the current state of the union for consoles. But you guys are absolutely right about the future, and I can't wait to see what it looks like.
Yeah, this like. Can we just hurry up and get the new consoles?
I would love to. Can we fast forward to December 2020? That would be awesome.
I'm just ready to get my hands on Cyberpunk at this point.
Oh, dude, Cyberpunk. And after today, Gamescom was today, and we saw some more Death Stranding.
That's a good point to bring up for the show. Some of the stuff that you're going to be hearing. Again, we're a new show for the week that was. So Gamescom is going on right now. Next week, expect us to be talking about almost nothing but Gamescom, depending on what announcements that we get.
Right, yeah, definitely.
So it's going to be kind of crazy.
Yeah, we're currently like, 12 hours into Gamescom, so we don't have a lot to go on.
We saw some woman with a ghost umbilical cord and Norman Reedus peeing. That's Gamescom right now.
And it was awesome, and I can't wait to get my hands on that game. And
Shadowkeep trailers.
Yeah.
There was a couple some Shadowkeep Microsoft
trailers.
had a Shadowkeep section, and they had a Shadowkeep section in the other...
at the Game Awards Gamescom thing?
Yeah, I don't know what to call that.
Jeff Keighley does a thing, is what I call that.
That was Jeff Keighley doing a thing.
I'm always there when Jeff Keighley does a thing. I've loved him since way back in his IGN days. So when he started the Video Game Awards, that felt great. Like, I love that.
It took a lot of years to get to where it is now, but it's so good now. All right, now we need to get to the news now that Hector's done bitching. Let's start off.
And that was Hector's bitching corner.
As we often do with fun, happy news. DC for a while has actually been writing various incarnations of the Masters of the Universe / He-Man universe. Different titles that tell different backstories or a different take on the origins. They've all been very interesting and very different.
Yeah, there's been quite a few we've suggested on here before. I can't remember the exact runs or whatever, but I've read some of them and thoroughly enjoyed the Skeletor stories and backstory they put on there.
Yeah.
And like alternate origins for He-Man and the powers of the universe and all this other shit. And not Master was literally the powers that created the universe. Like, where'd those come from?
Yeah.
It's a separate
and
thing.
so DC is going to be kind of coming back with a new 6-issue limited miniseries, and it's going to be called He-Man and the Masters of the Multiverse. And this will apparently explore the multiverse of all these comics that we've been getting for so long.
Yeah, we even had Superman and some of the DC heroes cross over with the universe. They're like, no, it's literally in the same space.
Right.
That infinite thing that's out there.
So what we're going to be getting is we're going to have a He-Man teaming up with possibly different He-Men from other worlds to like fight an anti-attorney, as what they're calling it. But one of the bigger notes to come out of this is that one of the biggest heroes of the story is actually going to be Keldor, which, if you're not familiar with him, is who Skeletor was before he became Skeletor in the continuity.
Interesting.
So you've got like a Skeletor who's going to be like a hero that's going to be helping fight this battle.
How do you humanize a villain named Skeletor? I guess like this.
Well, yeah, that's exactly how you do it. Well, and a lot of the DC stories that have gone back into Skeletor's past have really touched on that. When he was Keldor, they've gone and done an interesting job writing this story of a person who is a villain that you kind of associate with, almost the way that you associate like with Killmonger in Black Panther. It's like not everything Skeletor is doing is just because I laugh maniacally and I'm evil.
Right.
Because what we have is fans of us people who grew up with Masters of the Universe now writing comics, and they remember Skeletor as their favorite, villain, and they go, man, I'd really love the chance to like really expand on his backstory and make him more human, make him like relatable. And so for years and years and years, people have been doing this. And so what you get is this really cool, fleshed out series that has an amazing universe attached to it that was basically a cartoon to sell toys.
Yeah.
Like it's insane.
I love it.
And I'm so behind it.
I'm looking forward to this because it's finally going to be able to maybe prove my theory that if you have 5 He-Mans in the same universe, they Voltron into a Cronenberg-esque monster and they conquer everything.
Do they have like 5 power swords just out of a center of a blob?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the power swords actually also merged together in the weird Cronenberg thing that I think
like
would
a
happen.
Gilgamesh, like man of many arms with multiple weapons kind of thing. That was a deep cut for you guys who are mythology fans. But that is not all for Masters of the Universe. And I want to keep an open mind going into the next statement I'm about to make. It was just announced that Kevin Smith is going to be working on a new Masters of the Universe animated series with Netflix.
That's actually being animated here in Austin.
Yes.
Ooh.
So it means we probably know a few
We
people that
probably
are
actually
animating
do.
this.
People that are going to be working on this. It's going to pick up where the original animated series leaves off, and it's his intention to really go into some of the what he calls unfinished threads of the story. There's episodes that kind of left the viewer wondering, like, but what happened next? He wants to kind of touch on something.
Maybe we get some
So
of
we're
that
talking
Cthulhu
about,
mythos
like,
thrown in
That's
there.
that's what I was thinking. I was like, I actually he had posted about it last night on Twitter, and in my drunken haze, I tweeted at him, and I was like, like if you're going to be doing these plot threads, you have to go into Lovecraft, like 110%. Like as a Masters of the Universe fan, like those were very, very intentional threads that were put in there. There's an entire 2-story arc. It's one of the darkest cartoon like arcs you'll see, and it's basically like Nyarlathotep being like brought to life in the middle of the Masters of the Universe.
So this, I have a weird, like, there's follow me on this. This might be headcanon, but it does make sense. So the DC universe and the Masters of the universe coincide. They exist in the same place, right? And then, so that means the movie universes could also be with He-Man universes, right? And then James Wan directed the Aquaman movie, which does have like an Elder God sea monster in that.
We are getting some deep
and
cuts
also
here.
Annabelle is in that movie. So this is just making
Wow.
a whole lot of sense now that I'm super on
I think
board
this
with.
is all. I think this is all tying back to really a discussion we've had multiple times on the show, where Netflix needs to, now that they're losing Marvel, really embrace DC.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it'd be nice
Like,
if they
yeah.
could make some quality shit out of
I
some
mean, you've
DC
already
stories.
got Archie comics with Sabrina.
Yes.
Like,
They have a great relationship with CW.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that they get those shows the week after they finish airing.
Yeah,
That-
that's true.
No more waiting the entire summer to get that the week before the next season.
Mm-hmm.
That shit, when Legends of Tomorrow's over, it's on there.
And DC has been doing really good about branching out as far as their shows. Like, they're not just all on the CW. I think, Cloak and Dagger's on something else.
That's on Hulu.
That's on Hulu. What else is that? Black Lightning, I don't think is on.
Black Lightning is a CW show. In fact, we'll
Oh,
be
it is
crossing
on
over
CW.
with the Arrowverse whenever they do their big crossover
Yeah.
in December.
I could have sworn it was on a different channel,
Nope,
but I
it's
could be
CW.
wrong.
Nope.
Okay. I'm
It does
missing-
take place in a different universe. It's not part of the Arrowverse.
What does Runaways come out on?
Hulu?
Hulu.
Hulu. Oh, but
And then
that's
you're
a
thinking-
Marvel thing, isn't
Yeah,
it?
that's Marvel.
Yeah, never mind.
Now we do have writers that have worked on Supergirl,
And Cloak and Dagger's also Marvel.
Oh, yeah.
Supergirl, Reign of the Superman.
It's good.
We have writers that are currently working on the Magic the Gathering show, and writers from the show Alphas are all coming on to work on this Masters of the Universe project.
Okay.
So it isn't just like one or two people in a room. Like, we're trying to get some like high quality people, and I'm nervous about it because it's so hard. It feels like to do Masters of the Universe right when it comes to animated or just in film in general, because what we had was the original run. Since then we had a movie, which was bad, but I love, and then we had a series other like reboots of the show that have happened. Yeah, like
And
there
they're
was
okay.
Was it more than a pilot?
there
no,
was
it's
like
seasons.
Masters of the Universe 2000, and there was some other stuff where they tried to kind of reinvent it, and it just never stuck the way that the original did.
Yeah.
And so I am a little trepidatious because of that. But
Honestly, look at the. I'm pretty sure this would be done by the exact same animation team that did Castlevania.
Right.
Because we're friends with them. I'll find out after the show because they'll be like, "No, I can't talk about that,"
I
which
mean,
means it's a yes.
Yeah.
And so we already know that the animation, if it's done by the same team, that they're fucking great.
Mm-hmm.
Like they knocked it out of the park with Castlevania. The animation style at least was great, and we know Netflix is going to get some of the people who worked on that to kind of come in there and be like, "Hey, this is how we do a Netflix animated series for adults.
Yeah, I
so
mean,
let's go with that."
When you look at the kind of anime coming out on Netflix too, like
Yeah.
if they can like hone their animation studios and get them to work together, you can see some really, really good action going on in a lot of these cartoons, which is not easy to do. I mean, Castlevania being a very good example of that.
Yeah. So it's been a weird news week for Netflix, because not only have this announcement of Masters of the Universe, but then you have Stony Pictures Animation, the producers behind Into the Spider-Verse, announced a project for Netflix.
Yes.
And this fucking project is the weirdest fucking thing. It is a animated series about Elvis Presley, who is a secret agent who works for a government spy group.
Okay. There's already conspiracy theories about that.
It's Jean-Claude Van Johnson, but Elvis.
It's being called an adult animated comedy. And I always get nervous when I hear that term being thrown around, because when you hear people say like, "Oh, we're going to do like an adult puppet movie," you're like, "Oh, you're just going to put like tits and
Yeah, I was
puppets
gonna
fucking
say
in
it's
it."
puppets with
It's
dicks.
like, Yeah, and that's not what I want. When you say like adult, like animated comedy, like I want it to be funny.
Well, no,
and, like,
it has to
and,
be for adults because no one under the age of like 55 knows who the fuck Elvis is.
Right.
I'm pretty sure like everybody at least knows. He's like Batman. Everybody knows who he is. I mean, you may not be
Nobody,
you may not be
no
familiar with
fucking
his work.
12-year-old is going out and be like, dude, I really want to hear me
even
some
if,
Elvis.
like,
I didn't say that. What I said is you know him like
Yeah.
Batman, but you may not have actually gone into the source material.
I mean that.
Like, you know he existed at some point like Mother Teresa, but you know fuck all about their life.
Right, exactly.
Right, because I mean, like even like if your parents are in their late 30s or early 40s right now, I don't think they're talking about Elvis.
No, they're not.
Like, you know, and you're like, you know, 5 to 10.
Yeah.
Like maybe you've never heard of Elvis.
Well, you will
No, like
eventually
our
know
generation,
about it.
Yeah.
we were in our 30s. We did listen to Elvis at some point. I'm guessing we've heard a couple of his songs. They've been in
Yeah,
movies.
it's impossible to
But
get
we-
away from some of his.
But like my parents, on the other hand, that was their teenage years, so
Right.
they still to this
They
day they
lived it,
like
the
they lived
hysteria,
Elvis.
yeah.
No, like I've actually seen home videos of my dad showing his Elvis record collection.
Now the kicker
Like-
for this is that the showrunner is Mike Arnold, who is a writer and works on Archer.
Okay.
So you have somebody who's like one of the head guys for the show Archer doing a show about Elvis Presley being a spy.
I mean, yeah, I'm here for it.
You know what? I mean, they've put out worse shit on Netflix.
They put out worse adult animated comedies, that's
Yeah.
for sure, and
Right.
better ones too. I mean, well, I don't know how good this is going to be, but you're talking about the people who brought us BoJack.
That's true. Yeah.
So
Yeah, there's a lot of the adult animation that they have on Netflix. I think has been pretty fucking
Well,
brilliant.
and that's the thing is
yeah,
that
you're a fan of Big Mouth, right?
Yeah, I really like
Yeah.
Big Mouth. The fact they just renewed that for like 5 more seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
keep-
were
I
like,
keep
well, we
getting-
did like 2 and kind of a half with a special. I mean, it was like a special thing. So like,
I keep getting
the fact they were like 5
recommendations for
seasons.
that.
I recognize that it is a good show. Something about it is not for me.
I know that you're actually not the first person that has said that. I know at least like
But-
3 people have been like, Big Mouth is not for me. I can see why it's funny, but it is super not a show that I'm comfortable with watching.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the way BoJack is for a lot of people.
That's true,
And like
yeah.
BoJack is like a very dark show,
Yeah.
and for some people that are already kind of like dark internally, like watching BoJack, like really reflect what their thoughts are,
Yeah.
isn't okay.
Yeah,
for
no,
them.
like that's one of the reasons why I don't necessarily like BoJack because my mind is already pretty in a dark place,
Yeah.
so I can't. I can't really enjoy the show. It's the same reason why I can't watch the news. You look at it and go like, "Well, everything's on fire, like it is in my head."
Can't do
Okay.
anything about that. Better go cry.
All right. Speaking of things on fire, great
Yeah.
segue there. I appreciate that. We had previously talked about that Ghost Rider and Damien Hellstrom were going to be getting their own shows on Hulu.
That's a good segue.
Yeah, I mean these are
Yeah, those people are literally on fire.
They are literally on fire. What's really cool is it was announced over this last week that instead of doing a like mini Ghost Rider show or like a mini Damien Hellstrom show, what they're doing is there was a title that existed in the Marvel Universe called like Adventure into Fear. And what they're doing is they're taking that comic title and they're making that their new terror show, and they are being very specific about that term. They said this is not a horror show, this is a terror show, and these feelings are evoked differently, right? If you say it's a horror show, then you expect to be creeped out the whole way. There should be moments of just brief moments of terror in specifically with what they're doing.
Right.
So you take a character like Ghost Rider, who we're getting the actor who was on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to come back and play Ghost Rider.
Nice.
And then you have this character of Damien
Tying that
Hellstrom.
universe together.
Right, this Damien Hellstrom character, and they're going to basically essentially make an anthology series out of this. So this may be
It's
the
just
place.
so weird that this like isn't being like immediately pushed over to Disney Plus because it is a Marvel property.
So I have a feeling that this, what they want to do with it, is they want to keep the show darker. And for it to be darker, it needs to operate under the Hulu banner, not the Disney.
We
Plus.
did talk.
does do
We
a
did
lot of
talk
that.
about that the Disney is going to be the Disney Plus is going to be a bit more the family friendly stuff, and the experimental weird stuff is going to be put onto Hulu.
It's Miramax all over again.
Yeah.
But this opens up
basically,
the doors for things like Man Thing. There's a lot of characters that could fall under this banner for like the terror superheroes. And
It's similar to Miramax, but like hopefully a lot less people in power abusing that power.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, not
I
in
really
the
hope
power
that's not part
structure,
of it.
in the fact that it's Disney's side piece that like makes all the stuff they can't show.
I do
on
want to
Disney.
edit myself real quick. Is that the original comic book title was Adventure into Fear, and they're just calling it Adventure into Terror with this.
Okay.
See, I'm interesting that like that they're calling it or they're going with the terror aspect instead of horror. Like horror for me, I love horror movies, but I never really get scared by them or anything. But if you're saying something is terror, that means it needs to be either just nonstop life-threatening to me,
Right.
or a very interesting story that for some reason becomes life-threatening for no reason.
I've got a quote here if you'd like. This is Jeff Loeb talking about it, and said that we're calling it terror because when you say horror, it means so many different things. There's everything from Saw, which is the last thing that we want to do, which is a gore fest, thing. Here's a monster running
it's gore
around.
porn.
Mm-hmm.
What we love is the notion of how we can present a Marvel hero that was truly feared and truly believed that they are a monster. But as far as the stories go, they realize I'm actually kind of the hero of the story, not the villain. So that's kind of an angle that they take with this.
I'm on board either way. I mean, it's just an interesting take that they're going with on it, and it's intriguing to me now that now that I know more about it.
Ghost Rider's a good character for that.
Yeah, and what they did with Robbie Reyes in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was fantastic. So I just want more of that.
It was like the last part of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that I watched. It was the last part that I enjoyed.
Yeah. It was
Immediately, I was like, okay, cool, we're done with that, so I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
I got to see Ghost Rider.
They got some budget for that. I
Yeah,
gotta say.
no kidding.
All right, so let's keep along with the terror and horror motif a little bit, though. So we have Alexandre Aja, and I hope I'm not butchering your name if you're listening, who's worked on High Tension, The Hills Have Eyes, Crawl, very prolific, in his field, is going to be working on a choose-your-own horror movie adventure with the team behind The Haunting of Hill House.
Yes.
This is meant to be watched in a theater, by the way. This is not a Netflix choose-your-own adventure.
Oh, okay.
All right. The reason why we were kind of trepidatious about that is the technology involved in making a choose-your-own-adventure thing in a theater is very gimmicky.
It is.
And
It is.
getting theaters to go along with that idea, generally, I mean, you can make a smartphone app.
So that's what they're doing.
But you still have to project the thing, and that's going to have some sort of integration.
And it's not just that. I mean, there are digital projectors that can be done.
I mean, I get that, but then you got to somebody either physically or install a program to choose that plot line based on the Bluetoothed it up there get. Like it seems like a bad idea.
Yeah, no, but that's literally my first thought, but for a different reason. I would rather do something like this alone in my living room where I can make the actual only choice.
Right.
The idea of this sounds like me sitting in a theater where literally everyone has their phone out.
Right.
Yeah, which also I super don't want. I'm okay with it when I'm at home, but in general, no. But in a movie theater, super don't want you to have your phone out. Secondly, maybe it seems super silly to do this in a movie theater.
This is a Castle production.
Yeah, because I mean, aside from just having your cell phones out, now I don't get to see the story unless there's a really cool way that they're putting the story that the story comes first and that everybody on their phone is part of that story. That would be an interesting take on it, but that's about the only way I could make it acceptable in my mind.
To break down some of the things that we're worried about here. First off, if you're not familiar with William Castle, and I'm going to film history y'all for a minute instead of Tony.
Here we go.
William Castle was a very amazing director whose studios produced things like the original 13 Ghosts. And William Castle's stick was that every movie that he made had to have some kind of weird element to it that was...
It had to have a gimmick.
It had to have a gimmick. It had to be interactive in some way.
Okay.
So he had like the Tingler where like the seats would vibrate.
Mm-hmm.
Or 13 Ghosts. In the original 13 Ghosts, you actually had a custom pair of like 3D glasses that you had to put on to be able to see the ghosts. That's why in the movie, the modern version that we're all familiar with, why they wear the goggles in that movie is because that's what originally how the movie was made.
And there was actually the goggles for 13 Ghosts. There was a red side and a blue side. And if you didn't want to see the ghosts, if you were too much of a wuss, as I think they called it, you could flip them to the blue side, and you wouldn't see the ghosts on the screen. But no, William Castle is always did these weird gimmicky things, and it came out of an era where the movie theaters were still independently owned, but they were also still somewhat owned by the production houses. So you would make a movie and put it into your own movie theaters, and this got all taken apart because of giant things that the government got involved in because the amount of money was not leaving these companies' hands. And he was part of the end of that. This was where the independent theaters were trying to find a way to be relevant, to get the audiences in there, to have something unique that the other town doesn't have over there. So they would bring in William Castle and his, women dressed up as nurses and checking your pulse whenever you leave the theater to make sure you're not going to have a heart attack. The life insurance things you have to sign to go in and see his movies. And This seems like it's one of those things. Like way back in the day, one of the first movie gimmicks was the idea of pumping smells into your movie theater. And there's this prior to Smell-O-Vision, actually. Smell-O-Vision actually killed this idea. This was the idea of you really had to put like fans and tubes under the seats, and you'd pump smells into the air. And there was only 1 or 2 movies that ever had this, and it didn't really work out right, and it just was a bad idea. This scratch-off Smell-O-Vision thing is what ended up becoming the popularized version, but it was still a gimmick.
Right.
This... okay, one more. Clue. The closest we have our generation is the movie Clue, and it's had a choose your ending when it first was released.
Right.
But you didn't choose the ending. It was just you had 3 different reels that you could have gotten, and you got that reel, and that's the ending you watched.
Right.
You watch that movie now, and you see all the different endings, and that's the way they had to edit together to make sense out of it.
Yeah.
That was kind of the last gimmicky thing that's on this level. I'm not counting the 3D movies coming back. I'm not counting the VR. Shaking 4D seats. Actually, that's kind of the same thing, but
yes and no. I mean, it is definitely a gimmick like you're talking about, but it was literally an afterthought.
These gimmicks are not as... They're just not as well known. They just don't happen these days because it's expensive. It's hard to do.
4D is something you don't design your movie around that. They just come and add it to it later.
Right.
Much like 3D is done. But this seems like you're making a movie around a thing.
Yeah, you're making a movie around a thing. So the way that I'm picturing it being distributed to like all the different theaters is you go to your theater, you sit down, you get the app, right? You have the app on your phone. Before the movie starts, there is enter a 4-digit code into the app that then syncs you with the movie itself. And then at the screen on your phone, you will not use this except for when the movie tells you. It'll probably have like a little timer on the right side being like, in like 10 seconds, make a choice.
And your phone will vibrate or something.
Your phone will vibrate.
It's like the Jackbox games. I think it's what those are that we play. You play on your cell phone, but you connect to the screen off a 4-digit code, and everybody makes up super racist names for themselves.
And somebody will be like, do we go left or right? And then you'll on your phone just click that, and you'll have like a minute or a few seconds to put it in, and then it'll tally it and then move on to the next thing. This is cool for being a one-off thing.
Yeah.
I would do this as a one-off thing, as an experience with my friends.
Agreed.
I would definitely go with like a lot of friends so that we could like try and like tip the balance a little bit. But obviously this isn't like the future of modern cinema or anything.
Oh, yeah.
This is just somebody wanting to do a really cool, fun thing with new technology
that
I'm all about.
But Netflix already has that built in.
It's true.
But Netflix literally has that in their ability right now. And they're not fucking up people's movie-going experiences by having them pull their phones out and doing ridiculous shit.
That's fair, but to be also fair to the other side, that this is like, what you're signing up for when you go to this theater. I would like to have something like this in my living room eventually, because the first time I watched the Bandersnatch, it was with someone else, and we were like fighting over what to do.
Right.
It was great, and it kind of made part of the experience better.
Yeah.
But I think that if this requires movie theaters to purchase and or install additional software or something on their systems, this is not going to go over well.
No, it won't.
Because trying to get movie theaters to bring back a 35mm projector when they've switched over to digital is literally fucking pulling teeth. They will not do it.
Think about how hard it was to get just plastic 3D glasses back into movie theaters. It took Avatar.
Yeah.
There were a couple of other ones. There
were a bunch after.
Yeah, but there were a few beforehand too. I believe that the Man of Steel one came out before it. Not Man of Steel, but the sequel to Superman
Returns?
Superman Returns, yes. That's what
Was
it was.
that in 3D?
Superman 3D. It was shot regular and then digitally enhanced to have 3D scenes that were added to it, and they only came on during certain scenes and literally flashed the 3D thing on the bottom. You put your glasses on,
afterthought.
and then you took it off.
Yeah.
I watched it. It was a pretty, for a movie that wasn't shot in 3D and like in the, let's just air quote, early days of fucking CGI, they did a damn good job of turning a 2-dimensional scene into a 3-dimensional scene. But it was not, wildly accepted, and it was a gimmick as well.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on from that. I want to talk very briefly about The Magicians. Obviously,
Fuck,
Tony,
that show's so good.
You're a huge fan.
The books are good.
You love the books. You love the show.
Hell yeah.
It was announced this week that Lev Grossman's actually going to be working on a 5-issue limited comic for The Magicians.
Okay.
So I'm going to explain the premise, and Tony, you explain why the premise is important. All right?
Cool.
So the comic, over the 5 issues, is going to be a new generation of magicians that are enrolling at Breakbills College, but the students are actually hedge magicians. and this is going to be their story of being hedge magicians and enrolling into break bills.
Okay, that's interesting. So, I'm not sure this is based on the book universe or the television show universe because they are two separate things.
Right.
Hedge witches do exist in both of those things, and they're treated both kind of the same. That head witches are people who have their magical powers, but they learn them kind of through word of mouth. They end up going and meeting other head witches, and they expand their knowledge. But they're seen as trash when it comes to true magicians.
Right. So imagine it, a good analog. Imagine if in Harry Potter, if you found out you were a wizard or witch, and you went to audition to go to Hogwarts or whatever magical school is in your area, and you didn't get in.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
but
how
you were
become.
but you were still like, oh fuck, I can do magic. But you have to teach yourself.
Yeah, it's not like it's not like they take the magic out of you. You're born with magic, so you're just gonna go on being uneducated and hopefully not a problem.
Well, actually, not in the magician's universe. Everything in the world universe has magic. It depends on if you are intelligent enough to be able to manipulate reality to your own will.
Right.
And that's the way magic works in their universe. Yeah. So you're not born a magician. Anybody, if you are smart enough, could be a magician.
So part of the conflict in this comic, obviously, is going to be there's a lot of older students that see these kind of outcasts show up, and this is going to be a lot about how it'd be a lot about prejudice. To be
no, that's something that they went into in the show a little bit. That if anybody who's a head witch, it was immediately they're dirty. They're not held up to the standards of being a proper witch or wizard, not those magician.
Yeah, but it's very classist. It usually happens along poverty lines, to be honest.
And it's an interesting idea because in the books, we do have one character that is a hedge witch, and we learn about her story in the second book and how it coincided with the first one because the time is weird in the books, much like it is in the show. The show has a lot more hedge witches and goes way more into that world, but they are two separate stories. The story that exists within the television show and in the books are very different. And if you read the books, it makes complete sense on why they are so similar, but also so dissimilar at the same time. With this being a comic book, I'm hoping that this is literally a third universe that they're adding that is another continuation of the same story.
I would need to do some background research about this because, as far as I understand, this is an extension of the book universe, but I could be mistaken.
The book universe is very much about these 4 or 5 characters. You do get a kind of a world overview, but nothing near as in depth as the television show.
Man, I need to put these on my Audible list.
They're fucking great. There's 3 books. They're wonderful. I mean, New York Times best-selling books before they were ever a television show.
I'm wrapping up with the last Expanse book that I will listen to for a while. Maybe throwing the Magicians on.
I mean, I've been trying to get people to read these fucking books since the first book came out.
I'm trying not to listen to the rest of the Expanse. Thank you very much. I want to listen to the rest of the Expanse.
It's all there for you. Just embrace it.
Don't Game of Thrones
spoilers.
Don't spoil it for yourself. If you like the show more than the books, wait for the show to catch up to the books.
Man,
it's impossible to like the show more than the books. The show is amazing, but holy fuck the books.
The current book that I'm on, Abaddon's Gate, is so vastly different than the show. Like, the entire second half of the book never happened in the show. Like, holy shit. So, let's go ahead and move on from the Magicians and talk very briefly about the state of the union of BioWare. Because we have Anthem's lead producer, Ben Irving, leaving. And then this week, Fernando Mello, who's the lead producer on the new upcoming Dragon Age game.
The game that's not out yet.
The game that is not out yet has left BioWare.
I didn't even know if that game's like in proper production yet.
What does this tell us? Like, without being vicious about it, what do these moves tell you?
Who is it that owns BioWare now? I can't remember. Is it Ubisoft?
EA.
Okay, one of the EA. One of the two of them. They're very similar. But it really seems like EA's going in there and doing the opposite of what everybody wanted.
Well, I mean,
everybody hoped they were going to be left alone. And they didn't. They're getting fucked over and being told what to create now.
Well, from what we understand, BioWare ate a lot of the brunt of the backlash when it came to Anthem.
This thing is that Anthem is their second failed game in a row. They failed with fucking KOTOR. Everybody forgets that there's an MMO called Knights of the Old Republic that came out and fucking bombed hard.
Yeah.
And then they made Anthem, which... Actually, no, wait. Mass Effect 3 came out after that as well. 4 came out and bombed as well.
That was the last one. It was
so we had 3 games. I was wrong. 3 games in a fucking row that have been bad.
Yeah.
Like, hands down, bad games.
Well, Dragon Age, the last Dragon Age came out after KOTOR, and that was a success.
Okay. Was Dragon Age Inquisition a success?
Yes, it was.
Okay,
it sold well. It didn't review like the best RPG of all time like they wanted it to, but
compared to the others, it was
it was a solid like
right, so,
80, 85.
So 2 in a row, one just before that. So their track record's pretty shit.
It's
1
bad
out of
right
4
now, right? And so BioWare keeps taking the brunt of this. When to the gamers, at least we like to think that this is most of the things wrong with these games is EA's fault and not BioWare's, because we've seen BioWare make incredible games when given the time and the resources.
Right.
So
yeah, no, I mean,
this tells us is that right now the people who can afford to leave, the big names, the one with probably a little extra salary under their belt, the ones who can take their name and apply it to job applications in other companies
or start their own other company,
right? They're getting the fuck out.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the management level is leaving.
So let's not forget what EA does with companies like this. EA takes companies that make failed games, even if they failed them, Visceral, and they just closed them.
Right.
So we might be seeing the writing on the wall here. It's like, oh, well, EA is going to close their studio. I need to get the fuck out before that happens, because then 1,000 people are going to need a job, not just me.
That's actually 3 or 4 cities worth of employees that would be leaving.
So you have
if BioWare went
the head of BioWare leaving, and then you have the head of Anthem leaving, and Anthem is Respawn, I believe, right?
No, Anthem's
still BioWare.
Anthem is BioWare.
I'm
They're
sorry.
both
No, I'm
BioWare.
sorry. I was thinking Apex.
Apex is Respawn.
Yes,
Yeah,
Apex is
Respawn.
Respawn.
Got it across from my head.
We're all on the same table now.
So you have these heads of BioWare that are leaving, and it's really beginning to feel like this is kind of, like you're saying, top down. This is EA coming in, especially because it's something that we've been talking about a lot on this show, is the current state of microtransactions and loot boxes within gaming. And we know that EA has been really kind of pushing these features into games.
Yep.
And we're not saying that there's a correlation here, but if you take something like the upcoming Dragon Age, something that if they could just get one Dragon Age game right, they would make millions.
Yeah.
A true to form like Dragon Age Origin style game that everybody wants to buy, they would love it. But if the head of this team is suddenly leaving, I don't think it's because somebody said, hey buddy, you want to come work at my company. It's probably because EA said, so that new Dragon Age game you're making, make it however you want. Here's all the microtransactions you have to put into it.
Or here's you can make it whatever, you can tell whatever story you want. We are going to dictate to you the team design, the team size, the budget that you are allowed to, you have to stay within, but also include all these additional mechanics into the game.
Go ahead.
For our listeners, this is all hypothetical.
Speculation.
Yes.
It's all speculation. But go ahead, Hector.
The thing for me that I think is the most likely culprit for this, especially for the Dragon Age team, the BioWare guy, is the Anthem guy is obvious.
Right.
That game was driven.
Let's get the fuck out. This thing's not going.
That game was driven into the ground so hard that it's not even a meme joke anymore. It is now just forgotten.
Right.
And that was fucking fast.
Right.
Well,
that game came out this year.
There's still promised DLC on the horizon for this game that will never come out. They barely
legally something will come out with that name.
They barely,
but it will not be to the level that it should be. The game fixing version that it should be.
They barely shoved this expansion out the door. So whatever comes out, if it comes out, we'll see what happens. But so that guy leaving is obvious. He's like, I can't take this shit no more. For me, watching the guy from Dragon Age leave tells me exactly one thing, and it's the exact same thing that happened to Mass Effect. They made them use the Frostbite engine.
Well, yeah.
Because it's the only thing that EA has under its belt that's worth a damn, and they don't understand that it doesn't work for RPGs at all.
The moment, because they switched over to the Frostbite in Mass Effect 4, right? Was it 3 or 4?
Yeah.
I know it was in 4.
Yeah. It was definitely in 4.
For our listeners that are unfamiliar with the Frostbite engine, I think this is a good moment to kind of educate.
Right. So the Frostbite engine is what Battlefield has run on since Battlefield 3. It's a gorgeous engine. You can make really realistic looking textures out of it. You can make amazing effects with it. You can make things look photoreal. It has amazing lighting, on and on and on.
But it's running primarily used for first person shooters.
Yeah, right now it's running Battlefield 5 with RTX. Gorgeous. Doesn't run very well. I have friends who are loyalists to Battlefield 5 who are saying every time this game gets updated, I can't play it for a week because it just breaks. But it's a very pretty engine nonetheless. Works great for first-person shooters. But the Mass Effect team is in mind. It wasn't even really designed with third person in mind. The textures don't look that good from that far away. So if instead of letting them create their own engine or borrow one from someone else, or even just use the
license one that everybody else uses.
It's like, can we please just pay for Unreal? It's like $20.
Can we just get Unity up in this bitch?
Right,
please?
but yeah, if it's this early in the project and they saddled them with that, and I was the leader, I'd be like, no, I'm not making Mass Effect Andromeda. I'm not doing this to Dragon Age. I'm out.
Right.
Yeah, at that point, I mean, like, even if you say that you were like you're so proud of being the creator of a thing, you have to eventually get to the point where you're like, the people who are in charge of you are forcing you to make changes, even on what level? What level are you comfortable with including those changes to create the product that you want, but also that they want?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be like saying, okay, here, good, you get to run this company. Oh, great, here's $20. What? Yeah, that's your operating budget. $20. Go stretch it out. Do more with less.
And that's one of the things I was saying.
Guess
like,
what? I've worked in tech long enough. I've been in that situation.
Yep. And then it's like, nope, this job is untenable. This cannot be done. First of all, and second of all, I won't try. Bye.
Yeah, no, and I think that
Honestly,
we will see one of the locations of BioWare getting shut down at a time. We're not going to see all three being closed up.
You're right, because it's a big studio. That being said, I mean, they shut down Visceral, and it was at least 2 studios all at once. They when they closed the studio, they just
they've already closed one of the 4 locations that BioWare had.
Yeah.
So we've gone down to 3. So we have we had 2 in Canada. Now it's 1 in Canada, 1 in Austin, and 1, I think, in Europe.
I practically guarantee you that the only reason we haven't seen BioWare closed and Dragon Age canceled is because they know everyone would hate them for it.
Well, at this point, because they did tease the announcement of the new Dragon Age game.
I hate to say this, but I almost hope at this point that BioWare goes the way of Black Isle. And so if you're unfamiliar with Black Isle is the ones who did like Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale, Planescape Torment, all those fantastic games that happened back in the day. And the studio got closed. And those IPs kind of went away for a little while.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, out of the woodwork, we're starting to get it all again. We're getting, the people that worked on Divinity getting Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah.
And it's like people that actually worked on those previous titles coming back and working on them, but under an environment and under conditions that's conducive to creativity and development, not the bottom line.
I would almost say that a game like Dragon Age would benefit more from a more like Divinity style size of studio, budget, and definitely creative environment, and even like a more indie budget would probably make that game fucking sing.
Oh yeah,
I honestly I do agree with you. I think that if they, let's say BioWare went away and eventually EA decided to like let those licenses out, we would get better versions of them in like 20 years. And honestly, I kind of hope that they do that, or they at least shut them down, because then we could have all the people that work for Dragon Age go work at other companies and make us kind of like whenever Torchlight came out. It was made by people who made Diablo. And you're like, you remember Diablo 2, that game you loved? We made this. And everyone went, holy fuck, we love this.
Yeah, Torchlight
Think about all the amazing not Dragon Ages we could get if they actually fire everybody so they could go make the better version of the game.
And I mean, I'm all about...
I love that idea.
I'm all about Dragon Age, but think about what we could get in the vein of like a non-EA Mass Effect, too.
Yeah.
Like some good ass like space exploration and cowboy.
Give me a good space opera.
Absolutely,
like absolutely a space opera.
Do not make any more Nightsteel Republic, Disney. Just don't do that.
No, like they should, but they need to like get a different team.
I was gonna say Disney, please fire EA like immediately.
That's what we actually want to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, don't go from them to like Activision.
Oh,
that actually makes the most sense for them to jump to Activision. So
I would rather they jump to like Ubisoft, honestly.
All right,
all of them suck. All these options are bad.
Our last bit of news for the week, literally right before, as I was wrapping the show notes up, this popped up in my newsfeed, and I feel it's very important for us to discuss this a little bit. And that is that Sony has acquired Insomniac Games, which is the studio that made the most recent Spider-Man game.
Correct.
Which is like everybody has a giant heart on for.
They've made multiple Spider-Man games, if memory serves.
That's very possible. I don't remember. I wasn't old enough yet when the
I can't remember if they did the previous
when the older Spider-Man games.
I've
came out
always
to
liked the
remember
Spider-Man
who
games, and
developed
I for some reason believe that Insomniac made them. If they didn't, they did in my mind.
So Insomniac has already also worked on projects like Sunset Overdrive.
Sunset Overdrive was exclusive when the Xbox One came out. I think.
Yeah, it was. It started as an Xbox One
like a launch
exclusive, and then
title.
they
And now it's
and
on
it was, yeah, it
Steam,
was a day
I
one
think.
launch.
Yeah.
And now it's on Steam and the Microsoft Store.
It's on PC.
They brought it over to PC.
But the thing Insomniac is also really famous for is the Resistance series, which was the console first person shooter for Sony,
right.
For the PlayStation 3 era. And it did a
fun
lot
game.
of cool things.
It was very interesting. You could slow down time with your sniper shots and everything. But as a first person shooter, whenever you're taking what was Resistance and Halo,
You're right.
Yeah, of course.
Halo beat the living shit out of
Well, yeah,
it.
it was an entirely different kind of experience, especially when they decided to once part 2 came out and they were like, I mean, we're never going to out Halo.
Yeah, you can't.
We need to do something else. So they created basically almost a MOBA mode with 4 player, almost like a horde mode, I guess, before horde mode was really a thing. And they took a bunch of dudes against wave after wave of enemies, some of them with massive health bars that you had to focus down. It was kind of like a cross between horde mode, which was a thing since Gears, and something like I don't know, Left 4 Dead maybe.
Yeah, it's more the survival team of 4 going.
Yeah, it was super interesting, but a lot of fun. They did some
the
really
graphics
cool stuff.
and
It
the
had
world
good
was
multiplayer.
and the story of those games were really cool.
Resistance was space Nazis, right?
No, Resistance was alien invasion in the World War II era, and then technology kept getting better and better because you had alien stuff. So it was
But still stuck in the 50s, but also
Yeah.
sci-fi.
That's why I was thinking space Nazis.
So it's I've got a bar and I'm shooting at aliens like an old BAR machine gun from World War II, and then this one dropped a plasma launcher. I got a plasma launcher now. All right.
Well, I'm playing Wolfenstein right now, so
Yeah.
that's pretty much what I'm doing.
True that.
No, it was a very fun game, and I've loved their games for a long time now. It's because they don't just do one type.
Yeah.
They
I think they also own the Crash license and stuff as well.
They could very much so. I mean, Insomniac has their
they have quite a few things. But I mean, so what we've been hearing rumblings of, and I haven't wanted to talk about it on the podcast for a while because it's mostly rumors and speculation, and we try not to do that. We try to be more fact-based when we talk about the news. But we've been hearing rumblings that Sony's trying to buy up more studios in the wake of Microsoft buying up more studios.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
because-
Ratchet and Clank you're thinking of.
Ratchet and Clank,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense because right now we know Microsoft is on a buying spree.
Oh yeah.
Historically, the Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo don't do that. You have Activision and EA and Ubisoft. They go buy smaller studios and put them under their banner, which we all hate.
Yeah, I mean, before now, when Sony wasn't buying studios, they were literally just building their own. It was we're gonna make Santa Monica. We're gonna make. I don't think they bought Sucker Punch. I think they just kind of built it up.
Yeah.
So yeah, they never bought a studio before. I don't think. Not that I can remember.
Not I'm aware of. As far as I know, all the people that are the first person creators for Sony are basically first party creators is out of good faith with Sony. Sony
Right.
gives them money and they make a game like God of War or Bloodborne.
Like Square Enix is not it's not a subsidiary of Sony.
Right.
Square Enix can make a game whoever fucking company they want.
But for a long time-
they do a lot of it with Sony
for a long
because they're
time,
friends. They work
the
well
go-to
together.
place for Final Fantasy.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with From Software. Sony doesn't own From Software, but when they pay for a game, that's their game.
Honestly, because actually, no
Sekiro
wait,
was the first for a long time that wasn't Sony exclusive.
we are actually giving Sony's going to buy all of those. Then think about this: Microsoft
might.
is going through right now and buying all these additional studios. And if Sony doesn't buy the ones that are making their first-party exclusive titles, but only in name, not in contracts, to be made just to Sony, Microsoft can go in there and be like, "Yeah, we're just buying that one too."
I'm not gonna
So
lie.
if
Sony bought From Software tomorrow, I'd be like, "Well, all bets are off now."
I was
You
gonna
just got
say that
fucking
they're gonna buy
Software.
From Software. They're gonna buy Guerrilla Games, the makers of Horizon. They're gonna. I mean, there's a lot of shit.
I honestly feel this is again this super just my own theory. This is not an actual legit item. I really think Microsoft was going around to them being like, "Hey, what is your
might
price?"
have. They might
and
have.
Sony heard about it and said, "Fuck! If we don't start buying, if this is the first one, I think over the next year and a half, we will hear of Sony buying more and more of their studios because they know that if Microsoft starts sniffing." they will give them enough money.
Insomniac
to
might
go
have
to
been that
them.
first one where they were like, well, we have an offer. And they're like, fuck, we'll double it.
Yeah.
This presents a very interesting situation when you sit here and think about it, because in the past, what we had was console developers and their handful of exclusive titles, right? Your Nintendo had your Marios, you had Gears of War and Halo on Microsoft, you had Last of Us and stuff like that on Sony. But what we're hearing now is these studios are starting, these major companies, the big three, are buying up other companies. Microsoft acquired something between 12 and 15 companies in the last year.
Right.
Sony is now moving into that market.
Naughty Dog.
We said that it was going to be a big deal for what your first party content is. At the same time, let's think about the fact that we're currently in an era where we're talking about multiplayer games and how they should always be cross-platform.
Yeah,
right.
agreed.
So your big stuff should be cross-platform.
Anything that's basically not owned by Sony, Microsoft, or Nintendo.
Right. So you have these variables like you have the big three buying up companies. You have us as gamers demanding cross-platform play for certain titles, not all titles, obviously.
What are the types of titles? Things that have multiplayer in them.
Right.
I mean, like, it would be really cool one day to play some. It's that Nintendo Squid Ink game where they shoot.
Splatoon.
It'd be think about how fun it would be to play on Splatoon with my people that play on Nintendo and on Xbox and on PC. We all just get to shoot people with weird ink guns. But that would require Nintendo to.
But
be
you
very
also
more
have
friendly.
things like Microsoft recently announced that Ori and the Blind Forest is going to be coming, or the sequel is going to be coming to the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's nice.
Microsoft is reaching across the aisle to shake hands.
We'll put our shit out there
if
so
what
you can
I'm
make money
saying
too.
right now sounds a bit disjointed, the reason I'm telling everybody out there this is that the future's a little bit uncertain with gaming right now, because we know the future that we want. It's a future where we all game together, we all play together, regardless of platform. But also at the same time, it's almost feeling like these first party companies, like your Naughty Dogs, your 343 Studios. These are going to become major players in determining who the quote-unquote winner of the next console generation is going to be. Because it's no longer going to be, here's the 2 or 3 exclusives to Microsoft
It's no longer
or Sony.
I'm going to play where my friends play, which is what it was for this last generation, and even the previous one. You played where your friends played,
Right.
With the idea that if it's a third-party company, everybody plays together. That doesn't matter anymore. It really comes down to the first-party exclusivity,
Right.
Exactly
to make
becomes that.
And
But-
that's the question. Like, we have two scenarios here. Like, everyone right now is starting to pick up their blocks like they're about to go home. They can either take all their blocks and go home, and now Insomniac will never make another game for a Microsoft console, and Microsoft for the studios that they're bought, vice versa for Sony. Or we could all pick up our blocks and put them in the middle and be like, games.
So
I mean, that's
would
the
be
world that we would
nice.
like.
That's-
but we already know we live in the worst timeline,
Right.
and that's not going to happen.
I don't know, man. Like, Microsoft's doing it though. Microsoft is letting. They're saying
Cuphead switched over.
They're still saying these 5 games are exclusive to us, except for Game Pass because PC.
Right.
Microsoft has to enter that same headspace. They have to go, these 5, Bloodborne is ours. If say if tomorrow they bought From Software.
Yeah.
They say, okay, cool. Bloodborne is ours. Dark Souls is for everybody. That's what we're going to tell you to do.
That could
they
be
could be an asshole and just say all of it From Software.
Oh, that's true. Like, no more Dark Souls anywhere.
But the backlash would be too hard. So they just say Bloodborne is ours, but also one Dark Souls game for everybody once every 5 years or some shit. And that's I'm okay with that, actually. Like, I look at that and I go, you know what? That's what the one for us and the one for them kind of trade-off.
That'd be
I'm
interesting.
okay with that. I honestly am, and I think we will get more of that from Microsoft because they've bought more companies than anybody else in a while.
So far,
12 to
yeah.
15.
So it makes more sense for them to go like, okay, we've got like 15 companies all making exclusives. Let's take 10 of those and keep them for us, and make those the reason to buy the next system. And we take 5 of these and say, everybody gets to fucking play these. This is why Microsoft is awesome.
So here's my thing, and this might come across a tad selfish, but I think it's also a good solution. And I'm talking to you mostly, Sony, as one of your biggest fans. If you could do what Microsoft is doing and be like, this is an exclusive for Microsoft. Also, it's on PC. If Sony could please do that, and then
They've
like
tested the waters a little bit recently.
they did well. From what I understand, also the Kojima game Death Stranding is not
that was-
exclusive on Sony forever.
That was the one I was saying.
It is
They're
console
testing the waters.
It is console exclusive to the PlayStation, but it will end up on PC.
Yeah, it's actually they removed it from their console exclusive section because it is going to be available. I think day one on PC.
Would you pay for an Xbox Game Pass, but a Sony version of it?
Yeah, 100% tomorrow. If I mean, think about all the games I would replay on my PC with just better everything. A lot of them. Like most of my PS4 library, I would play again at 60 FPS on my PC.
We are so used to not owning content anymore. Like our generation, we don't buy houses, we don't buy DVDs. We rent apartments and we have Netflix. We do the same thing for games now. Like as soon as Microsoft's like, yeah, it's just that you just download whatever game you want in this giant list of games and play it. And you're like, fuck yes, that is hundreds of games for you to play. I don't see why everybody else, like, we're the generation of we're never going to own anything. Just stream it to me, please. Sony needs to get up on this shit. And I think that their deal they made with Microsoft for the way they're doing their cloud systems and pushing games out there, I think that maybe they'll get something like that. Ideally, I would love them to play together and we get a Disney plus Hulu plus ESPN package where I can be like, yeah, I just pay $20 a month and I get every Microsoft and Sony game. Fuck you, and I play them all on PC.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the ideal future.
That's what I would love. And you know what? I would, even if I didn't end up buying their consoles, which are both loss leaders anyway, I'd still buy all of their exclusive games and play them on my PC. Why wouldn't they do this? Why don't they want my money?
Right. All right.
Let me pay you people.
That's everything we have for the news this week. We're going to take a small break. When we come back, we'll be going into our main segment, the death of the modern MMO in the boss room.
It's a good recovery.
Yeah, I was like, oh, we're going to have to redo this entire 45 minutes for that one flub.
Nope, I've got this.
I need a drink.
Whew.
Oh, I got hot ears, y'all.
We got sassy today.
Back sweat.
How's everybody doing out there in stream world? Thank you guys for being so patient with us today. I think the news this week was pretty interesting.
It gets very, very warm. I think
Slack is
smelly because of like the sweat. I can literally smell myself right now. So I'm like, oh.
Yeah, no. When I messaged you that I was running late, I realized that I had gotten home from the gym dead tired, and I was like, oh, I need to eat. Like, grabbed a bunch of stuff and ate, and I just kind of sitting on my couch, like, oh, it's time to get ready. Fuck, I need to shower. I'm gonna be late.
Yeah, I know. It wasn't up until I got over here and I started getting my body temperature started rising, and I was just like, oh, I need to take a shower like right the fuck now, but I've got to wait like 2 more hours.
All right.
I always hate that. Like,
this is going to be interesting.
Like, you know, like you're like, I really, when you just feel gross, and you're like, I just really want to be clean right now, but I can't do it for a set amount of time. It always fucking sucks. All right, open that. We got all our drinks open. Hector, you want to open yours?
Yeah, I might as well.
Okay, I just want to double check because
this one will be gone fairly quickly, so no problem.
I don't know why they don't make canned condoms. It's a koozie, but for the small little tiny douchey cans.
They really should.
Yeah,
they should. No,
I mean, I got pint glass holders. Like, I have koozies for fucking pint glasses. They make ones for fucking long necks.
Mm-hmm. Let's do it.
All right, we switched to boss room. Chat's back up. Good, if you're still around, you can talk more if you want. Like, you don't have to be quiet. Boss room.
Hey, adventurers, welcome back to the show. So, this is the boss room. It's our main talking point for the podcast, sometimes related to the news, sometimes not. This week, I want to push a special thanks out to PC Gamer Online. There was a very fascinating article that went up that got Hector and I talking, and over the course of 20 minutes of conversation on GChat, we realized we need to have this talk on our show, and it is completely because of their article, so all credit goes to them for this. The article that went up was talking about the current life cycle of MMORPGs. It asked the question, is the MMORPG genre dead? And this was taken from a Reddit thread for just MMOs. There's our MMO, I think it's called, where people were discussing and debating the current state of the MMO genre. And so I wanted to find a couple terms before we go into this. When I say the terms modern MMO, what I mean by that is things that range from EverQuest, Knights of the Old Republic, Final Fantasy 11 and 14, these very classic style current generation MMOs.
We're talking like true massive multiplayer. You know, if you go to a main hub in a city, everyone in your server can be in that same space.
Exactly.
It's just a huge area.
So we generally have to kind of put a number attached to it. It's generally at least 64 players in a zone, right?
Sure. Yeah.
That's kind of what the default number for every MMO is like about 64 players can inhabit this one giant area.
I mean,
if my
World of
memory
Warcraft
serves.
definitely notwithstanding.
Right, 'cause
I've been standing in Orgrimmar with hundreds, maybe thousands of other people.
Final Fantasy, same way. Like,
Yeah.
I've been in there both 11 and 14, and there's just like hundreds upon hundreds. Especially if there's an event going on. Fuck,
Oh, yeah.
like, fuck, when a Halloween event goes up, just wait for the lag to happen there.
Sad nerd story.
But
one time, it rang in the New Year's in Thunderbluff there in World of Warcraft, because I was a Tauren, which was also a mistake, aside from the New Year's in World of Warcraft thing. And they had fireworks and everything, and the city was legit stuffed to the nuts with other people doing the exact same thing.
So your sad nerd story had a lot of other sad nerd stories attached to it.
Oh,
I
yes.
mean, I have celebrated many a holiday being on Final Fantasy 11 and or 14. Been there and done that. Also, in Final Fantasy 14, the creator of the revised version, A Realm Reborn, Yoshi P, he likes to show up every once in a while.
Oh.
And when he shows up on your server, it's like all bets are off. Like just everybody goes there immediately. So that's the kind of classical MMO that we're talking about. We may talk about something that we're coining the term postmodern MMO for a little bit.
Okay.
And that's going to be things like your Destiny,
Right. Your Anthems.
Anthem, Star Citizen,
Yeah.
things that have these MMO elements but are very vastly different. So the question for the panel this week is the genre of MMOs, your classic, your modern MMOs, is it dying, and why? We need to answer these two very important questions.
Gotcha.
Well, I think that it's important to kind of put a little bit of history into what we would call the modern or classic MMOs things. Specifically, WoW. WoW came about in a period of time where PC gaming was kind of fucking dying. Like, it was dying pretty hard. Like, it wasn't the numbers that it is today. Steam wasn't at the level of...
It was still starting.
It was still starting
Yeah,
out.
it was
They didn't
before-
have the thousands and thousands of games in their library.
Right, let's not forget that World of Warcraft, I'm almost 100% on this, launched before Half-Life 2. Then Half-Life 2 was like the big Steam resurgence,
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm getting all my games here.
Yeah,
now.
you had to go to
Right.
get
Before
to get
it was,
the game.
why
was-
would I get Steam?
Right, it was
Yeah.
like I used Steam to play Counter-Strike was what it was before that, and then it was like, well, not
It
only
was just
do I
their
have
launcher.
not only do I have Half-Life 2, but I have like 5 other games that came with Half-Life 2 or right after it, Left 4 Dead and Portal and shit like that. I guess here we go.
Yeah, no, and since World of Warcraft came out prior to that, it was in an era where PC gaming had kind of fucking sucked. And it was the one game that people kind of remember because they probably had in their childhood or at some point played a Warcraft game. And they're like, oh, that's interesting, but now I can wander around and pretend to be one. That's a cool idea.
I can be a Warcraft.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could do a Warcraft
I love
thing.
being a Warcraft.
Yeah, but dude, the number of people who played that game, a lot of them had to have that mentality. Like, we can make fun of it. A lot of them had to have that mentality.
No, this is a good point that you bring up.
Warcraft went past that because the number of people that I know that played Warcraft were like me and my nerd friends. People that played World of Warcraft were like the jock in the office.
My
Yeah.
friend's dad, I watched play Warcraft for probably 2 years. He was just sitting, like, anytime we'd come over, he was just sitting at the computer playing Warcraft, and me making fun of him every time he died.
Well, the point that you made just a second ago about how accessible it was is a big point to be made. Because let's not forget about the few MMOs that were there before that. Final Fantasy 11, EverQuest, obviously, and
And then Ultima Online, and then
to a certain extent, EVE Online. So, in this world, you have these games that are just denser than lead. You have these games that are just complicated and overbearing, and you can die for no reason. They're hard to approach. There's a
Ultima Online, like, I remember trying to play that, and after 2 hours went, fuck this, I'm uninstalling. I literally waited hours to download the damn thing, played it for 2, and said, nope, uninstall, this game sucks.
Like, the difficulty for these games were not curves. They were just literal cliffs. And it was horrible. And then World of Warcraft comes along, and it's easy and accessible, and they do away with a lot of the shit
cartoony.
that people hated, like, de-leveling when you died. Shit like that. All of that is gone. You don't lose gold when you die. You don't lose, levels when you die. You just died. You walk back to your corpse. No big. So all of a sudden, these games are not as punishing, except for on your actual human time,
right?
And wallet.
And then you have a game that you can just play for. And it came out at a time when one PC game really could demand all of your attention.
That's true.
And it would also demand all of your PC. There was no, I'm going to watch Netflix on my second monitor. You didn't have a second monitor. You didn't have Spotify to stream music to.
You might have not even had a flat screen monitor at this point.
Bro, you probably had Winamp running in the background.
I did have Winamp running in the background.
You may have had Winamp running with your 20 MP3s that you illegally downloaded, and your computer has a virus now because you gave it space aids
and you're on
by putting on LimeWire.
Right. But that for me spells out why World of Warcraft was successful, and the few games before that were successful for how intense they were, and that's the thing that games were looking for. To answer your question, the genre right now, the classic MMO, is definitely dead, and gaming the game studios killed it. Before we started this conversation, I pulled up a point that I wanted to make, which is an actual list of failed MMOs.
Wasn't I supposed to take the side of MMOs have failed and
no?
I thought that I was that side.
You're the evolution side.
Oh, okay, my bad.
You're the Destiny side.
Spoilers.
So let's see how many of these we remember. Tabula Rasa, The Matrix Online.
I remember that one.
Asheron's Call 2. The Chronicles of Spellborn, Darkfall. Oh, Dust 514, the EVE Online.
Right.
Remember this shit? Mm-hmm. So this is the same thing that's happening now with Battle Royales. Games have been doing this for a long time. A game was successful, World of Warcraft, stupid successful, and then everyone tried to make one. And wasted our time and wasted their money and made shitty games. Very few actual good MMOs came out after World of Warcraft.
Guild Wars was one that I know a lot of people played.
I was about to mention Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2.
Yeah.
Guild Wars 2 was fucking awesome. I loved that game.
Yeah.
But again, these games demanded so much of your time that I never got really into an MMO after World of Warcraft.
And it's not just that World of Warcraft was so big that everybody else had to fail. Gaming goes through genres. Mm-hmm. Right now, we're in a battle royale. Films do the same thing. How many westerns do you see that are winning, coming out in groups? It happens together. Pirate movies happen together. Zombie movies happen together. We as a society latch onto one thing for a while, and then we move the fuck on. We latched onto MMOs for a while, and then we move the fuck on. But the way gaming works, at least, that kind of had to evolve them into something else.
You say we move the fuck on, but World of Warcraft Classic literally launches in 7 days.
It does.
And the servers are already full.
Right.
All of them.
But I would counterpoint that is that I honestly feel that people are excited about WoW Classic right now because they want to go back to that old thing that they
want to remember
so
their
much.
childhood when the world wasn't on fire.
And then they're going to go into it for 20 minutes and go, this is exactly why I stopped playing this game.
There's basically one server that I think will stand the test of time in WoW Classic, and the rest of them are going to be full of people going, "Oh fuck, I forgot about that."
There was already, because there have been the beta testing it for a while now.
Yeah.
And they were
got
already
to level 30,
and
level 40.
The week it came, they started doing the tests. There were all of these people sending in notes on the subreddit for it, going like, "Hey, this thing's broken. This doesn't work. Why doesn't this work this way?" And they're like, "Because we fixed all that later. We took that away whenever we gave you back the thing you said you wanted." Mm-hmm. So you're literally giving them the shittiest version possible of the thing that people said that they wanted. They're not going to stick around for long because they're going to remember, oh yeah, that fucking sucked.
Yeah, there's one group of fans dedicated enough to actually want to do this again, and these are the people, shout out to my homies on the RP PvP servers, because that is just the silliest shit, and sounds like so much fun.
The two servers that I belong to for Final Fantasy XI and for Final Fantasy XIV are two of the biggest RPG servers, just coincidentally. And so we had Odin back in Final Fantasy XI, and it was Odin, you couldn't log into it at some points. It was so full because it was the RPG server. Also, my character's on Balmug on Final Fantasy XIV. You can't, still to this day, make a character on Balmug unless you're up between the 2 to 4 a.m. window when nobody's making characters, and you can slip one in real quick.
Yeah.
And it's because they're RPG servers. And so
you mean you're saying RP servers, right?
Yeah. They're the RP servers.
For clarification, that's role-play servers where people pretend to be a Warcraft.
Basically, you're always in character.
I'm explaining for the audience that doesn't know what a Warcraft is.
So the thing about RP PvP servers is that they were very rare, even in classic WoW, because you would have RP servers and you would have PvP servers and you would have normal, where you were not expected to do either. And the PvP server was because World of Warcraft classically had two factions, the Horde and the Alliance, and if they see each other in the world, they are immediately able to fight. Just no holds barred. And this is not a rule generally among the general population. So an RP server where you're always in character and a PvP server where you can fight the opposite faction, you can imagine how fucking crazy and silly this gets.
Yeah.
With like people pretending to be their epic level like 47 paladin away on his journey and meeting his like night elf hunter in the woods and having a small conversation where neither understand each other and either deciding to like wave and leave and or like, there's a lot. It's a lot.
I get it. I can see the draw, but we as a society,
also it's your whole life.
Yeah, it's also your whole life. But we as a society also moved on. Like we were like, oh, these are really cool. But then Steam actually started getting a huge library, and people were like, oh, I can play other games. PC gaming came back into the forefront. Yeah. So new game genres or older game genres came back into popularity, and the MMOs started to wane in their the likability, the relatability, or even the gameplay of them just started to go down.
They became known as the thing to play when you're quote unquote hardcore.
Right.
You know, I'm a hardcore Final Fantasy XI player.
Yeah.
You know, I've done all the raids. I do all these things that take so much of my time. My hardcoreness is defined by the amount of time that I've invested in the game itself.
Jesus, and when I think about it, I had at least 2 vanilla characters at max level in World of Warcraft, which is already an enormous time investment.
That's ridiculous, because getting 1 to max level in vanilla was like a giant pain in the ass.
It was a month of game time, not human time, of in-game time. I have 1 in Final Fantasy XIV. I have 1 in Guild Wars 2. MMOs were a big thing in my life for a while.
Apparently.
Yeah. These are like, this is a lot of time investment. And
you've already bought into Classic, haven't you?
No, God, no. I would never do that again. I don't have the fucking time. I barely have the time to play the small games that I like. I'm not gonna RP walk my ghost from like the Barrens down to the Southern Barrens, which is a 15-minute walk if I'm running.
And there were no mounts at that point.
And there are no mounts when you're dead, bro.
Yeah.
And so then you get all the way there and you walk into the dungeon and then you dodge the mobs that have respawned to try and get back to your group who is not fighting backwards for you. Fuck that. It took them 35 minutes to get into the dungeon. And then you can continue on your way after you've eaten and manned it up.
And so what we talk about here
this is entirely the reason why they died. Explanation was me going, I don't ever want to do that.
Hector has made an excellent point, though. Time sink is a factor.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that we have so many other games and things that do take up our free time is a big factor. But I think there's a second factor that we're not considering, and this is my Tony side of the argument, which was, yes, the modern MMO may have died, but it has become something else.
Yeah. Now, so when you mentioned like going into a dungeon, or like you said, a raid. Y'all mentioned raids. That's a thing in like every MMO.
Yeah.
Well, Destiny has those.
Yeah. It's typically end game content.
Yeah, and it's in high level in game content where you really need to know what you're doing and have a well put together team that functions well and can rely on each other.
Coordination is key.
And that's the same. We have the same thing in the game that I enjoy, but it doesn't require 35 people to come together to unlock the door to go do a thing.
Oh, it was 40.
It was 40?
It was 40.
See, I went with 35 because it sounded like a ridiculous number. It sounded too fucking much.
Original WoW raids were 40.
Yeah,
I know, because I went...
And this is
8 hours a day.
Ours are still 6 players because it's console gaming. That's what they kind of expect people to. That's a friends group, right?
When WoW decided to compromise and make smaller dungeons, it went down to 25.
So this is going to this is just adding to my point of these games are bloated and confusing and too large and required too many additional people to function together to do a product.
You had to
whenever people were talking about the original WoW raids and they took like a month and a half or 3 months to beat them or some shit, and we're like, cool, the Destiny one took somebody 24 hours because it's complicated and people needed to figure that out. And but it was 6 players. So you didn't have to think about the math of that. You're like, okay, well, 6 players can do it in 24 hours. And if you take 40 people and it takes them 3.5 months, it just proves to me that those raids were either way too complicated or people are fucking stupid.
Right.
Well, no, they were they were complicated enough that you had to coordinate 40 humans.
Yeah, no, and coordinating 40 humans is a stupid thing to do in a video game.
I do want to kind of touch on that point a little bit, because what we have now is these postmodern MMOs like Destiny, which, yes, it still requires a team of very coordinated people, but one of the things that I think we look back fondly on, like World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy XI, is we go, oh man, wasn't it so cool that we were able to actually coordinate these 40-man teams?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was really cool that you could do it. You know, I can't remember the boss's name off the top of my head in Final Fantasy XI, but there was this boss in Final Fantasy XI that when it came out, literally nobody could beat it for the first 24 hours. They spent 24 hours trying to, with a huge raid full of people fighting this thing, until Square Enix finally had to shut them down and say, I think it was Absolute Virtue is the name of it, and said, guys, the reason you're not winning is because you're doing it wrong. Please don't make yourself sick and stay up for 24 hours trying to beat this boss without figuring out.
Well, you got a world's first it, bruh.
That's the most Japanese thing I've ever heard. Guys, please calm down.
I think that we're of two mentalities here. We look at the classic MMO.
Please stop playing our game. Your health isn't necessary.
Right. We look at the classic MMO and we say, oh, we missed the days where we could have this 40-man raid. And it was 40 of your friends, probably all drinking and smoking together, and it was awesome.
It was great. My 20s were a wonderful time when I could physically do those things. When my body wasn't the piece of shit that it is now.
Here's another sad nerd story from Hector's MMO days. This one time I had gone to college in Austin, and I had made some friends up here. And then I moved to Corpus Christi to finish out my college education. Well, my friends up here were having a house party, and I had just like the week before, gotten into my guild's raiding team. So this party was on a Saturday. Well, my raid is on Saturday. So I need to drive from Corpus to Austin to come to this party. But I need to bring my computer. So I did. And the raid, so the party wasn't until Saturday night. And the raid started at something like, I don't know, like noon or something like that. So yeah, plenty of time. Nope. 8 o'clock rolls around, and I am still on like the 4th raid boss, and we have like 2 more to go before we're really ready to stop, the raid leader said. And so there's just like all kinds of like women of like mixed intentions, like drinking and running around.
I'm super glad you're not playing WoW Classic.
And I am sitting there like, shields down. Let's get some fire on the ads. Yeah. So that's
you had another entire like rager going around.
Oh yeah. That's another great World of Warcraft story for the team.
And so
which brings me
society changed.
Well, brings me to my point. When we're talking about postmodern MMOs and things like Destiny, I put it to the panel that if it weren't for World of Warcraft and maybe a few games that came before it, when it comes to postmodern MMOs like your Destinies, like your The Divisions, there would not be as much of an emphasis on raids and endgame content if it wasn't for our classic MMOs.
He's incredibly correct. Luke Smith, the head of Destiny's, he's the head something. I can't remember his fucking actual title, but either way, he's in charge of basically the entire fucking game.
Yeah.
It was a huge vanilla WoW player to the point where he keeps talking about this stupid event where they took him like a month and a half to do a thing, and there was like not a scorpion, some bug was involved, and it was this giant, long, complicated thing, and required everybody coming together to spend all of their in-game currency to buy a thing.
He's talking about the opening of Encourage, yeah.
Yeah, sure. I don't know. I didn't play the game, but apparently it was this life-changing event for him that has then influenced massively what Destiny's world has become and how they handle raids and how they handle content and the idea of a community coming together to now where whenever a raid comes out, shit gets locked down. You do not have access to the previous existing raids until somebody new beats it. They call it like competitive mode, that they literally lock the game down. There's a power level cap that nobody can go past no matter what until somebody defeats this thing. They've made it more and more complicated. Division doesn't have anything quite like that yet because I don't think anybody in charge was a sadist fucking WoW player who decided that everybody has to do everything the hardest way possible.
Right. I think that when we are discussing the death of the modern MMO, one of the factors we're not considering is something that Tony kind of just touched on. we all went through the hardcore. I'm using this with big air quotes because the hardcore meant I wasted too much time in my life.
Yeah,
Too much
hardcore
time.
means you literally spent thousands of hours doing a thing for no fucking reason.
I neglected
That-
my education for several years.
death
I've neglected
of the-
my health for many years.
The death of the modern
Just a video
MMO and the evolution of the postmodern MMO comes down to we were players who played those games that were considered hardcore. We loved the idea of bringing 40 people together as a community to defeat those raids, but we have also realized that it's impractical and that raids should not and games should not be that difficult.
Yeah.
My time sink needs to be rewarding overall. Like that's the thing with any video game, whether it be Cuphead or WoW or Dragon Age, whatever the fuck we want to talk about. Your time sink has to be rewarding for what you're doing.
Right.
And whenever you're playing a multiplayer game, something that requires other people, getting 40 people together to go do a thing and being successful at it,
And only getting one armor drop, by the way.
and getting gets exponentially harder the more people you add to it. So whenever you take something like a 40-man raid, and you're like, "Fuck, it's gonna take." Like you missed a party, you missed a lot of things because you have a new thing. Destiny
I
is
raided-
a 6-man team, so
Yeah.
it can be. I just did 2 raids for the first time in Destiny last night or the night before. They took us about 30 minutes each. When they first came out, one of those took over a day for them to beat because it's just learning the mechanics. Now that people know it, it's way fucking easier. I think that that's the kind of investment we have to go with. Smaller teams, smaller investment, still getting the reward, functioning together, and also raid drops are per person, not per group, because fuck that other shit where you might get an armor drop and only one of the 40 people get it. That sounds like the stupidest fucking game design in the world.
In a 40-man raid, raiding a dungeon of, say, 10 bosses,
Okay.
you may get a piece of gear from one of those bosses that drops for your class. If they drop the correct item over the course of the entire dungeon. The average raid took you about 8 hours. Of this 40-man group, at least 5 of the people in this group are of your class. So now we're deciding who gets what.
Right.
This was how loot worked in World of Warcraft raids.
Yeah.
No, I
That
have to
being
admit, the
said-
first time I
that
played
being said,
Destiny,
you kinda-
I saw a thing on the ground and was like, "Oh, do I pick that up, or is that?
Oh, yeah,
is that
you
whose
didn't know
is
if
that?"
it was shared.
I was like, no, and they're like, "No, I can't see that. That's yours."
Yeah.
and I was like, "Oh, I get a thing." And they're like, "Yeah, no, whatever you see is your shit."
Which is nice. Please, let's keep that forever. But you kind of touched on something that you're leading into kind of my final thought for this entire discussion. Not to wrap things up prematurely, but this is the thought that I had at the end of what I decided was the title of this show, "The Death of the Modern MMO." When we talk about death, we think about things being gone. And game genres have always run in cycles.
Right.
And I think this genre will come back when our technology is ready for it. Because when you think about things like a lot of the stuff we see in Black Mirror, or something like, for our anime fans, Sword Art Online, when you can plug my brain into another world and
When
let
you're
me
in
just,
Oasis.
right, and let me, when I'm in Oasis, when I can just live out my stuff in there. I mean, hook it up to my fucking veins, which you'll probably have to.
Shit, that's something we didn't even mention. Oasis is literally the culmination, the biggest fan want of an MMO ever.
It is.
Was in that book and movie.
Yeah.
But and that's entirely where it came up. That book was written during that time.
See, the great
when these games were popular.
See, the great conceit of Sword Art Online is that you wear a helmet and you lay down, and everything that you do in the game is happening in your brain. You don't have to run on a treadmill or anything,
Yeah.
because that looked goofy as fuck. Although it would keep you in better shape.
It absolutely.
Yeah, no, there's no. You turn into a 5,000-pound fucking literally lump with a helmet on.
Yeah.
That's one thing I liked about at least the Oasis one was at the high level game is you have to be in shape
Yeah.
because you're using haptics to fucking do the thing, not just press a button.
Right.
It's true that it does go in cycles. I just don't know that
Immersion. That's
I don't think that we'll ever find ourselves returning to a time where we want to have a 40-person synchronized, everybody's on at the same time and yelling at each other through Ventrilo or whatever kind of thing, because we've realized that was something that worked for the time. Now people are much more conscientious of their own time.
Oh, yeah, very much so.
They say that I don't have 8 hours to do a raid. You know,
Even
I've
kids like think about it, when we were what in our 20s when we were playing these games.
Yeah.
And now kids that are in the 20s like I do not have time to put that kind of investment in a video game.
Yeah.
No.
I have this much time to put in a video game, but I've also got 7 jobs I have to do because I need to live in a 5-foot by 5-foot apartment.
And there are 6 games that cost less and don't cost a monthly fee that are very highly rated, and Steam suggested them to me. And I'm
or
gonna
check
play
out
all
this
of
thing that
those.
Microsoft. There's like it's $1. I could play hundreds of these other games for $1.
Right.
Fuck
And-
you. I'm gonna
and
do that.
There is a discussion online going through the Reddit thread about the kind of the death of the MMO. And one of the things that's brought up a lot is that mechanics changed. And the idea is that accessibility is key, where things like World of Warcraft or the Final Fantasy XI had much more, what we would consider much more heavy mechanics. Those are being discarded now. Things in Final Fantasy XIV are much more streamlined. They make sure you get more experience quickly. They make sure your skills make sense. They remove the skills that are redundant. They try to make it as easy as possible.
That's one of the things that I think is kind of like, at least on console side, when you talk about first-person shooter games that have MMO elements, and in the case of Destiny, actually said that no, we're going full on like MMORPG with some of our aspects, or at least we're adding MMO to our name and we're adding RPG elements to it. So while they are separated, platforming. And those elements are not in traditional MMOs. There's no solve this jumping puzzle where we're going to be throwing things
Guild
at
Wars 2, and it was kind of a disaster, but it was
that's
fun.
is on consoles and the new MMOs, the MMO lights as we've been calling them, have those elements. They've been able to take gameplay elements from other games and put them into an MMO-like environment, combining everything into kind of a best of all worlds where your time investment is easier and better on you, where your rewards are just as actually massively more rewarding than an MMO, but you can put in weird jumping shit. You're like, yeah, let's throw a fucking Mario jumping thing where we're going to fire giant bullets at you. And if you don't dodge them, you die.
Okay, so as we kind of wrap this whole thing up, we're going to go round table on this one. Let's go ahead and answer the question: is the modern MMO dead? If so, why? And what is the future of MMOs? Hector, let's start with you.
I have the perfect example of why the modern MMO is dead, and it's how badly Sea of Thieves did. Now, Sea of Thieves was very like side tangently an MMO because it followed a lot of the postmodern MMO rules, small server size, etc., etc. But it was a way to like get in touch with all of your friends and do something together, which is what we used to do in World of Warcraft when we just get into the barrens and quest together. It was you get on a pirate ship and you go out with your friends, and the big backlash to that game was there wasn't enough shit to do. And when you think back to World of Warcraft, when you think back to like it took you forever just to like get up to snuff before you could tackle the 8-hour raid content. And so you get into Sea of Thieves and you do everything there is to do in the game in 4 hours, and everyone's like, what the fuck? I was supposed to be hanging out with my friends forever in this new and interesting way. So yeah, the MMO is dead because we can't seem to find that balance between a game that's accessible and a game that is fun for a long time. Right. I would point this finger also at least launch Destiny 2 for sure. Launch Destiny 1 as well. But I mean, Division 1 for sure. Division 2 it had a lot of content when it came out. So that was nice of them. But it still wasn't enough for a lot of people.
There was a factor of making an unnecessarily high difficulty ceiling in things like World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy, just because they need to have time to generate more content.
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely dead. Hopefully, when we're ready, it will come back. When there's a generation of kids that can and want to. When a world is compelling enough for them to want to like just throw 8 hours into it, then it'll happen.
I kind of agree with you on Sea of Thieves. When it first came out, definitely there was not enough content. That it is much akin to Destiny in that it's an MMO light experience. It's more of a teams of like 4 or 6 players going together to do a thing, a way to hang out with each other while doing a communal activity. It suffered from the same launch problems that Division did and the same problems that Destiny 1 and even Destiny 2 did. Sea of Thieves has come a long way and has fixed a lot of that, and its player base has been growing. Destiny 1 and Destiny 2's player base both massively increased after the first year because they made enough changes to the game. I'm looking forward to this next year coming up in Destiny's world because they're adding even more MMO and RPG elements to it, where armor crafting, like literally I can craft it and you play exactly the way I want is the way they're putting it. No, it's legit. I only want to use this one type of gun. I can spec literally everything in the game to do that. And that's those MMO RPG elements that are coming into it. But we're not getting that 40 people giant world server where you see everybody running around in these giant open spaces killing things. No, I'm on the fucking moon. I'm expecting to see in the storyline there's like 6 people around me because there's a finite number of people who have a weird floaty friend that made them come back from the dead.
Yeah.
So there's not going to be a shitload of us. But, when we come down to the city, you can hang out with like 16 or so, and you're like, oh, these are people that are also doing the thing. I get it, storyline-wise, and also just gameplay-wise. They had to realize a way to cut back that shit.
Yeah.
And we've evolved the game, type of gaming since then. Where, when I was talking about raids, you can add in elements from platformers into them. And the gaming world can evolve and change with it. And yes, you've got games like Final Fantasy that are doing Final Fantasy 14 specifically that are doing fine, and you've got games like World of Warcraft, which is, I guess, still a thing.
It's still a huge
It's literally the only two aside from EVE Online.
So modern World of Warcraft.
I don't even count EVE Online because EVE Online is just it's Excel the game.
Yeah, and I shouldn't even say modern. I should say current World of Warcraft and World of Warcraft Classic are both being played simultaneously, sometimes by the same people, which is which is a super scary thought. But
the fact that we know a couple of those,
but it's out there, and somehow that formula still works for people.
And it does work, and they're still functioning. But the world of gaming has grown exponentially from where those started at to where there is still an audience for those games, and that audience new people will come into them and be introduced to them, but these smaller, lighter aspects are more easily acceptable. And honestly, people that do love WoW Classic or Final Fantasy 14 should be playing games like Destiny or even Anthem or Division 2 to get people to say, hey, if you like this and I enjoy this as well, you might also like this other game that I play. And at this point, that's kind of the only way you're going to get new players in there. It is going to slowly die off until you get a resurgence. Because again, everything comes in cycles. Right now, Battle Royales are the fucking thing.
Well, Battle Royales are so easy to make, and MMOs are so difficult.
They're way more complicated. It's way easier making a MMO light experience where you don't have to have 95,000 people on one server because that's going to cost a lot of money. Instead, I can have 6.
I just had this hilarious idea where, like, the people who made the first BR Battle Royale were like, all right, so we're going to make this MMO. We have this map, and so far the server can hold like 100 people. It's like, dude, we're out of money. Can you just like give them guns and make them shoot each other?
Done. We can do that.
I could have that done by tomorrow. All right. Do it.
That's what we're doing now. Get rid of all the monsters. Just put guns in it.
So, for my end, when I try and break these questions down, the first answer is obvious. Is the modern MMO dead? Absolutely. We have 2 reigning champions in Final Fantasy XIV and World of Warcraft. They're the ones that are the pillars. They're the ones that people that want to still invest that time and energy in doing those kind of things can do. Honestly, the one thing that both of these games has done over time is make them closer and more easily accessible to the players.
Oh yes, very much so. I mean, fuck, World of Warcraft's evolution alone is insane.
Right. When you hear old World of Warcraft players talk, they go, "Oh, it used to take me, like 8 to 10 weeks to get a max level character. Now, like 2 to 3 days. Like it's go."
It used to be a 12-minute fast travel ride from
that's not fast.
One city to the next, and that's literally just watching my character like
fast
fly.
travel is literally instantaneous.
In Final Fantasy,
that's
you take a teleport
works.
crystal and go.
Yeah.
So
that's your game is wrong.
So yes, the modern MMO is
fast as you
dead.
can
Why is it dead? Simply the fact that the market can't support it anymore. People have too much of. They're beginning to invest in their own time. And whether that be playing other games, watching other shows, whether that be going out dancing or whatever it is that they want to do. There's so many options out there, and there's so much more for a person to do other than sit in front of a computer for 8 to 10 hours trying to accomplish a raid. And that's one of the reasons that the classic/modern MMO is dead. Now, the future of MMOs. Yes, I know you guys kind of keep cycling back to this idea that maybe the classic kind of MMO will make a resurgence at some point, and I can see.
I mean, eventually it happens. Westerns come back in fashion.
I think in a different format.
It's always an iteration over time.
But what I'm really concerned with is what the postmodern MMO is, and I see this in 2 different categories. So the postmodern MMO exists in the Destiny side of things. It is a MMO. It is a massively multiplayer game that you can pick up and play for 30 minutes to a couple hours and feel like you've accomplished something.
Right.
Okay, that's the first aspect of the postmodern MMO. The second aspect of the postmodern MMO is No Man's Sky and Star Citizen. These are games that, while Star Citizen has not come out yet,
It's literally never coming out.
that provide as much universe as you want to put into it. This is something for the people who love those 40-man raids in World of Warcraft. They can get together on something like a Star Citizen, which still only has a very small amount of time that you actually have to play it.
Right.
But if you want to, you could drop 8 to 20 hours a day and be the captain of a fucking Star Brigade or whatever and fucking live in this reality, literally live in this reality and have it be almost infinitely expanding as the developers work on it. So
a friend of ours recently just posted this on Facebook. Had never played. What was the PlayStation? What was the PlayStation one?
Dust 514.
No, not that. The new one, the one that you just mentioned.
Oh, Star Citizen.
Not Star Citizen.
Final Fantasy?
Literally the
No
other
Man's
one.
Sky.
No Man's Sky. Thank you. How did we take that long of a way to get to No Man's
Because it's
Sky?
not specifically a PlayStation game.
It
Hasn't
was,
been
when,
for a
it
long
was
time.
when it first came out.
Yeah.
But this person just recently played No Man's Sky for the first time on PC. This is post every update they've had since the game first came out on PlayStation. I played it when it first came out. It was relatively simple. Go explore space. Look how everything kind of looks like the same game. The new interpretation of that game is look at how giant the learning curve is on this. Holy fuck, they added too much to this game. I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
And that's on a game where originally you might run into one person once in 1,000 years. And now it's like, oh, there's people all around you. You can go do the thing. It is taken that MMO aspect, but taken the mechanics of world building and castle building and everything else to a ginormous degree and complicate and put it into VR. Like apparently, I just watched the thing about how they had to basically remake their entire game so they could put it in virtual reality.
And that's why I see the postmodern MMO being in two categories. I'll call it the dad at home wants to pick up and play a game for 30 minutes to 2 hours, feel like he's accomplished something with a couple of his buddies, or the universe is expansive and let's go out and explore the stars. I don't want to funnel this into it's specifically a star game.
Right.
But those are the games that come to mind right now. It's like Star Citizen and No Man's Sky, where there's so much content pre-built into the game that you can go there for 30 minutes and have a good time. Or if you really want to, if you want to be one of those people that they write books and articles about for years to come,
right.
The man who makes the fleet or the pirate ship or whatever and really dominates the world. But
the other ones, the smaller ones, the one you said, the dad ones, still have that aspect to it. We just recently had a bunch of people go on Reddit and start writing articles about things called dad builds. People that only have 30 minutes to play a video game once a week, where they can go, this is the gun you get, this is the armor you get, this is the fastest way to get the thing that is just okay. Yeah. And once you have time sync, whenever you can put 8 to 12 hours in per week, or even 40 to 30 hours in a week, you can go get the good version, which is the one that requires amount of time. And there's different levels of that. So it's not saying that like, oh, Star Citizen or No Man's Sky is on this level of you have to do this. No, they're still going to have dad builds. Yeah. They're still going to have, you can jump in the game for 30 minutes because that's fucking, even WoW had that shit.
But that's why the modern MMO is dead.
Not at first.
That's why the modern
Not at first, but in the Middle Ages. Like, let's take WoW from 8 years ago and not WoW from like 12 years ago.
But that's why the modern MMO is dead, is it required a certain amount of time. It demanded, let's say, a certain amount of time and a certain amount of presence online to do that. And the postmodern MMO just will not ask that of you. It'll ask that of you if you want to be the hardcore top 100 in the world, but ain't nobody got time for that.
No, dad builds are a fucking thing for a reason. Like, most people have 30 minutes every couple of days that they can devote to playing a video game.
Yep.
Maybe you're watching TV and you're playing on your phone or something, whether it be because you do that. I will watch you play a cell phone game. They could have MMO type environments on your cell phone. You're like, wait, he's like, I got 30 minutes while I'm watching my favorite show. I'm gonna make a level on this thing and I can stream it from my phone. Cool. And then you do have this hardcore aspect, and that's going to be any game gets hardcore players. But I mean, look at Red Dead Revolver.
But
before they put the online on there,
hardcore games no longer are hardcore because that's what the game demands of you.
Right.
It's because that's what the player has put on themselves, and that's what a postmodern
it's personal choice.
That's what a postmodern MMO will do, is make it the player's choice, the amount of time investment, and what you would consider quote unquote hardcore.
Right, because as Tony knows, I mean, in a game like Destiny, you can put in 40 hours a week, no problem.
Oh, easy.
But you can see pretty much most of what the game has to offer with much, much less investment.
Yeah, no, that's whenever that was one of the problems that whenever Destiny 2 first came out, it was a game that was designed for casual players, people that wanted to play a game for 30 minutes once every week or two, and that was it. Prior to that, Destiny 1 had gotten to a point where it was designed for hardcore players. It was people that were putting in at least 10 hours a week into the game.
I think what we're really in a roundabout way saying right now is that the postmodern MMO is really going to have the core level, in air quotes, defined by the player, not by the game.
Yeah, definitely. And that is, that's a
Games are being more designed for anybody can have access to the thing, depending on your level of dedication.
Yeah, a game being hard for the sake of hard usually comes now in the form of a single-player game, where it's like, you need to figure this out, but that's the fun of it. Yeah. We're not doing it to you to be dicks because you need to play the game longer. This is literally just you solving what's going on.
Yeah, no, putting like real-world time elements, like I know cell phone games do this. Putting real-world time elements, you're like, oh, I want to go do the thing. You were talking about how long it would take to fast travel. It's 15 minutes. And I'm like, no. Instantaneous is how fast travel works. I just show up there. That's how video games work. You're not magically... I don't have to physically go there. It's a computer. I can just be at the new place.
So I'm in the Barrens at the crossroads, right? And I get in a Wyvern and it flies me to Orgrimmar. That's like a 3 to 4 minute flight. And I get there and then now I need to get across the ocean. I need to go... to the city on the other continent. So once I take the Wyvern into Orgrimmar, I walk down and outside the city to the giant dirigible. There's 2 dirigibles flying in kind of a circle, and that's how they
That's your monorail?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a taxi service.
Yeah.
And one goes way south to the other continent, and one just goes straight across to where I need to go to. And this cycles every like 3 to 4 minutes. It's there, and then it's here, and then it's there, and then it's here. So I get on it, and I go across. And then I get there, and then I walk the 2-minute walk down into the actual city from where the dirigibles park.
Yep.
And then I can hopefully pick up my quest to go to the next place.
Nope, cutting it all off.
I love that you said dirigible that many times. I was bored until you started saying dirigible.
I am completely cut off here. This is where we're ending it. I think that we've made our points about the reason that the modern MMO
We put too much time sink into the talking about it.
Yeah, we absolutely did. But I think this made some very valid points. I want to hear our audience's thought about this. Please, if you ever played an MMO or you think the MMO genre is dead, give us your thoughts about it. Tony, where can they find us?
Facebook.com/SurlyNerd. Like, share with your friends. Twitter's @TheSurlyNerd. I've put TheSurlyNerd.com is our email address. SurlyNerd.com is our website. You can donate there. You can donate on Twitch.tv/SurlyNerd. Live Monday about 7:30 Central. We've got
Hi Mixer fans.
Yeah, hi Mixer.
Yeah, hey, Mixer.
Our new Microsoft overlord since you bought a guy who plays a game, and now everybody's going over there. That's my knowledge of what's going on that side of the world.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you who their names are. I just know Microsoft and Mixer, and that's it.
That's it.
Yeah, no, we're done. We're done now. Just give us money, please.
Yeah, give us a thumbs up.
We're gonna make things for you.
Like and subscribe, please. We really appreciate it. It really does help our podcast out. Until next week, for Tony, this is James.
For James, this is Tony.
And I played way too many MMOs.
Adventures, good night.
And good game.
Nice.
Hey, thank you for cheering. Yes, dude, Halo Infinite, which we know fucking nothing about aside from seeing graphics
Literally
and looking at new
zero
Spartans
about.
going, that game looks cool as fuck. I don't know anything about it.
Please launch on PC, Halo Infinite, whatever you are. That'd be nice.
Dude, all right, so I'm a little bit miffed that I have to, if I want to play Halo on PC, even though I already have the Master Chief Collection and Halo 5, and I have every copy of fucking Halo made, that I will have to once again buy.
Oh, you have to buy it again.
I have
on
to
PC.
buy it again on PC.
It's not like
even
a
though I
part
already
of your
have it.
already Xbox Pass that
was,
transfers.
Halo's the
between?
one thing that's not going to be part of the Game Pass.
That's a little stingy. It is like the micros. It'd be like Sony not having it'd be like Sony having a pass and you don't get Uncharted, you don't get The Last of Us. It's like, what the fuck? You don't get God of War.
I mean, if you
Then
had
don't give a shit.
If you had to choose one and they're being stingy about it, would you rather they get Gears of War or Halo?
Halo, hands down.
I mean, me too, because I don't like Gears of War.
I like Gears of War just fine. In fact, I like it a lot. Me and Lash play every Gears of War together. They should still lead with Halo.
The previous Microsoft, or the head of Xbox, was like that. What do we have?
Oh, yeah.
Halo and Gears of War. Put those characters in everything.
Yeah,
do all of it.
Have them sit on a Porsche because we have Forza.
Yeah, and now it's more like we put just recently for The boat one, Sea of Thieves.
Sea of Thieves.
They put in your ship's flag can be the Spartan symbol, and they're
Cute.
like, yeah, they're actually they're like if you log in the next 24 hours to Sea of Thieves, you get it for free, and that's it. That's their integration. You get the Microsoft Everybody Loves Halo thing,
Right.
but I think the games they're going to be you have to buy them. All right, we need to sign off. I need to feed the dog.
It's
all
time
that.
to go. I go home.
All right, later, guys.